When this guy comes to the training grounds, everyone looks down on him. They know he's a complete scoundrel, a disgrace to his noble family, but he shocks everyone when he challenges his younger brother to a duel. Everyone is sure he won't make it out alive, because his brother is a genius who has mastered his skills his whole life. Our guy used to be a genius as a little boy as well, but he wasted all his talent by drinking and chasing girls instead of training. Yet when the fight starts, he just laughs at his brother's pathetic moves. He blocks everything effortlessly and finishes him with a single strike. Everyone is shocked, unable to understand how it's possible. Maybe it was just luck. But when one of the strongest knights steps in next, the result is the same. Christian defeats him even faster and humiliates him in front of all the knights. That's when the knight commander loses her patience. She won't let this scoundrel mock her knights and is determined to show him his place. Like everyone else in his family, she considers him lowly trash destined to die drunk somewhere. So she rushes forward with a storm of strikes, but he blocks everything, shocking her and all the knights once again. And just as she gets distracted for a second, he headbutts her straight in the face. She's shocked when she sees her own blood and stops the fight, because she's thrilled to train him and turn him into an unstoppable warrior. You may wonder how this bastard became so strong in an instant. The thing is, it's not the same scoundrel anymore. A genius from the future ended up in his body. Chris is basically a jack of all trades, but a master of none. He's just an average guy with a talent that lets him learn anything in an instant. To make a name for himself, he ended up joining the hero's party. With his talent, he played a significant role in the party, handling all sorts of tasks, which earned him the nickname, the Great Extra. But before he could truly blossom and harness his potential, he met a tragic end when the Age of Destruction began. It was during the time when the Demon King of Carnage, who hailed from the Magic Empire, started wreaking havoc in the Dominion of Light, and Hero Evan was not strong enough to stop him. As expected, they failed, and the Dominion of Light eventually fell into the hands of the Demon King of Carnage. Before dying, Hero Evan had one last wish. He wanted Chris to ascend to the role of hero. He wished he could turn back time and make this last wish turn into reality. However, Chris didn't share the same sentiments. After enduring so much hardship in life, this death felt more like mercy, a gateway to freedom from misery. Even if given a second chance, Chris would rather have been born into a rich family. That was his final thought before he perished and regressed back in time. He was reborn into the body of a young master of the Magic Empire, the very empire from which the Demon King of Carnage hailed from. For extra context, the Dominion of Light is the place where humans live, while the Magic Empire is the place where demons live, which are also called fiends. The place he was born into was the Dark Magic Clan, one of the 12 clans that support the Magic Empire, as his eerie name suggests. From what he understands, he had regressed 15 years back in time, 5 years before the beginning of the Age of Destruction. Now Chris is a rich brat, but the owner of the body he now possesses is far from pleasant. He's inhabiting the body of Christian Van Baron Khazar. According to Chris's past life memories, Christian inherits the noble Van as his middle name, meaning he's part of a branch family. The House of Count Khazar is a branch family of Baron County, also known as the Dark Magic Clan. Although the Khazar family is just a branch, it still holds a lot of power and influence due to its good standing within the Dark Magic Clan. Their wealth only amplifies their influence. To further emphasize the Khazar family's status, there's not a single fiend within the Magic Empire who doesn't recognize their influence. The Khazar family has 2 potential heirs, but the eldest son, Christian, is a troublemaker who always attracts problems. But the crucial thing to note here is that Christian was eventually murdered by his relatives. This is brutal news for Chris, who has just inherited Christian's body and is now about to die. All Chris ever wanted was to be born as the son of a regular rich family with no unnecessary drama. But beating himself up over his bad luck won't do him any good, so he needs to think hard about what to do to avoid dying. He still has 2 years before Christian dies. It's important to note that he was eliminated within the House of Count Khazar, a family that places great importance on honor. This likely means Christian was an absolute good-for-nothing, and thus murdered by his own family in order to avoid any damage to the family's name. So, Chris hopes that if he becomes a nice person and keeps a low profile, he might dodge that death bullet. Now that the issue of dying has been dealt with, Chris starts thinking about living a comfortable life with all the money he has. But his daydreams soon hit a snag when he remembers the Age of Destruction that will start in the future. The Demon King of Carnage started the war to sacrifice humanity and complete Ragnarok. By the time anyone realized this, it was already too late, and both the Dominion of Light and the Magic Empire met their tragic ends because of Demon King's selfish desire. If Chris truly wants to survive, he'll have to figure out a way to stop the coming apocalypse. The Demon King of Carnage is powerful on his own, but he also has an entire army of loyal fiends from the Magic Empire. The only way Chris can stop all this madness is to become more powerful than the Demon King of Carnage. The only way to do that is to become the Demon Emperor himself and sit at the pinnacle of the Magic Empire. He has 5 years before the Age of Destruction begins, which is enough time to come up with a plan. If he succeeds, there's no doubt that the entire Magic Empire will belong to him. Later, we see Christian getting scolded by his father for leaving his room, despite being grounded. The head of the house isn't stomaching the fact that Chris dared to show his filthy mug without properly repenting for the embarrassing incident he caused not long ago. Count Khazar gives him one last warning, making it clear that his next act of negligence will be his last, once his head is chopped off his body. The menacing, almost suffocating aura of Count Khazar is so intimidating that Chris is literally shuddering instinctively. Eventually, he sincerely apologizes for all the wrongdoings he has committed until now. Chris is trying to mend his relationship with Count Khazar because he wants to get rid of the bad image everyone holds of Christian. This is the only way he can move forward with his plans. He continues his apologies, hoping to sway the Count's heart, but it looks like a few words of apology aren't cutting it. The Count has no intention of believing his son's words after all the trouble he has caused. Meanwhile, Chris is trying to figure out what in the hell this bastard Christian pulled off to make the Count lose all trust in him. There are so many horror stories Chris has heard about Christian that he isn't even sure which one is the most recent. So, he reminds his father that he lost a portion of his memories a few days ago. Because of that, he doesn't even remember what he did that made his father lose all trust in him. He goes on to say that, in an effort to remember, he reflected on his past actions, only to realize how awful he had been all this time. He completely owns up to the downfall he caused to his father's reputation. But even with all of this, the Count is still unwilling to believe him. After all, he has heard these excuses countless times before. Seeing no other way to convince his father, Chris decides to go extreme. He sincerely requests to be sent into the punishment cave, offering to spend up to a month there to prove that he has truly changed. Here's a quick explanation of the punishment cave. Apparently, it's a place made to imprison high-status fiends. There's no light, and all 5 of the captive's senses are blocked. It only takes a few days before a captive's mind is completely broken, driving them into madness. With that in mind, Count Khazar doubts Chris would even last a few hours, let alone an entire month. Chris has already considered all possibilities, but this is the only way left to earn his father's trust, so he is willing to take on the challenge. Count Khazar, having seen Christian make countless big promises before, is hesitant. Every time it ended in disappointment. But this time, he's willing to play along and give him one last chance. However, he makes one thing abundantly clear. If Chris fails to prove he's a different person after spending an entire month there, he will be banished from the clan. Chris already knows that being banished is basically a death sentence. There are countless enemies Christian has made in his life, and the moment he loses the protection of the clan, they will all come for his life. Still, my guy accepts the challenge. However, if he succeeds, he wants his father to grant him one favor. Count Khazar scoffs at Chris's confidence but agrees nonetheless, so long as he truly changes for the better, though he highly doubts that's even remotely possible. Later, as Chris sits in his lavish room, a fiend arrives to inform him that the punishment cave has been prepared. This guy's name is Cox, a half-vampire and the butler of the house of Count Khazar. Chris acknowledges his words, and after a while he begins making his way there, carrying a luggage bag on his shoulders. As he walks through the corridors, every servant and household member whispers among themselves. They're all convinced this good-for-nothing must be plotting something again. They recall the recent trouble he caused, insulting the young lady of the Poison Magic clan. The mess was so bad that Count Khazar had to personally bow his head and apologize to the Poison Magic clan. Now it makes sense why the Count was so furious and dismissive of Christian earlier. The humiliation must have been so bad that the man probably wanted to die from embarrassment. Some people in the background even start betting that Christian won't last more than 2 days in the punishment cave. But my guy just smirks in confidence because he knows he's about to subvert their expectations. Meanwhile, his little brother watches from the sidelines, keeping a close eye on him. A while later, they finally arrive at the punishment cave. To emphasize just how dangerous and please don't come closer this place is, 2 Death Knights stand as guards at the entrance. They might look intimidating, but there's no one stopping Chris from entering. However, just as he's about to enter, his little brother calls out from behind. Here is a quick introduction to this puny punk. As you already know, he is Christian's biological younger brother and a model student, Christian Van Baron Khazar. The rest of the introduction can wait because, out of nowhere, this little guy pulls a fast one on his older brother, stopping the sharp tip of his sword just before Chris's eyes. While our boy doesn't react outwardly, his soul inside him has literally died of a heart attack at the sight of that attack coming. Still, Chris keeps his composure and questions his little brother, asking what he's doing here. It turns out Thurn is just here to remind his older brother how pathetic he is. He warns him that if he tarnishes the family name any further, he might as well be dead. Seeing this feisty little punk, Chris is pretty sure Thurn was the one responsible for Christian's death in his previous life. Chris has actually met Thurn before during the Age of Destruction. He was a fiend famous for curse magic. Anyway, Chris reacts to his little brother with a stern glare. Of course, those intense glares make Thurn shudder, while Chris just keeps his tough guy act and enters the cave, shutting the door behind him. This display of attitude leaves Thurn absolutely enraged, as he's not used to seeing this side of his older brother. Cutting back to Chris, he walks through the dark cave, unable to see or hear anything. There's only the faintest sensation left around his fingertips. Thinking about it, this sensation seems deliberately left there so that prisoners can feel the objects they bring inside. Otherwise, they might starve to death if they can't fumble through their supplies. Still, an ordinary person would quickly feel mentally drained in such a place. But this doesn't affect Chris. After all, he's experienced worse during his time as a treasure hunter. To be honest, having his senses cut off is exactly how he wanted it. This way, he can focus inward and look inside himself. It's the only way he'll be able to fix this wreck of a body. Sure, it will take time and a whole lot of luck, but with the medical skills he learned back when they called him the Divine Hand, plus the bone compression art he modified, he is sure that he can pull this off. And being the rich guy he is now, he has access to magic stones with various properties, so fixing his body in this place won't be a problem at all. He honestly thought he wouldn't be able to get his hands on magic stones since they're so expensive, but it looks like this is one of the perks of being rich. In his previous life, Hero Evan and he had to struggle just to obtain them. His first step will be to use a white magic stone, which will purify any toxins in his body. It might be a boring process, but it's an essential stage. He'll need to meticulously clean the toxin buildup across his body with white mana. Even the smallest mistake would cause immense pain, but for Chris, it's a walk in the park. He can handle it just fine without even putting much effort into it. Meanwhile, back with Count Khazar, he asks his butler about Christian. The butler reveals that Christian obediently entered the punishment cave. He's sure that Christian is going to be so wrecked that he won't even have the strength to call for help. These unsettling words only serve to make Count Khazar even more worried. He starts questioning himself, wondering if it was the right decision to let him go inside. Count reflects on how Christian had such a promising future as a child, so he is unsure how he could have broken apart so suddenly. For a moment, he even starts to question if Christian's exceptional talents went to his head. Regardless of the reason behind his downfall, the Count would rather see Christian die crippled than live miserably. As much as he wants to place faith in Christian's words, he just can't bring himself to do it. After all, this isn't the first time his son has tricked him with smooth talk. Count then questions his butler, asking if he noticed Christian carrying anything when he entered the cave. The butler hesitates to reveal anything, but under Count Khazar's scrutiny, he's forced to open his mouth. He reveals that Christian carried magic stones with him into the cave. Among them were dream stones, which can make anyone hallucinate. The butler fears that since they don't know what exactly Christian is up to, they should open the cave immediately. But Count Khazar responds sternly with a firm no. Even if Christian is plotting something shady, it's all the more reason to let him die there miserably. A month passes, and Count Khazar finds himself standing right outside the cave's entrance. Before Chris even makes an appearance, the Count has already convinced himself that his son is as good as wrecked by now. But of course his expectations are completely subverted when he sees Christian emerging from the cave, with a broad smile on his face. As surprising as it is, there's no denying that Christian has fulfilled his promise by returning as a completely different person. The Count can't help but notice the brightness in his son's eyes, something he hasn't seen since Christian was a child. This change might be admirable, but Count Khazar isn't about to loosen up immediately. He's still firm in his belief that this small achievement isn't enough to convince him that his son has truly changed. However, Christian doesn't back down. He makes it clear that he'll keep working even harder if that's what it takes. Christian is certain his father believes he barely endured the cave, but that's far from the truth. In fact, Christian was so busy training that he didn't even have time to get bored. First off, he optimized his body to master swordplay. Thanks to the white mana stone, he never ran out of juice. But the real game changer was the Dreamstone. The butler had tried to stop him from bringing a narcotic mana stone into the cave, but Christian was glad he had stubbornly brought them anyway. The hallucinations caused by the Dreamstone drastically reduced the time it took for his metamorphosis. On top of that, he created 2 cores within himself. Christian couldn't help but feel proud of everything he achieved in that deadly cave. He was convinced he was a genius. After all, having 2 cores wasn't something you came across every day. Because of this, he hid his light core inside his darkness core. If anyone discovered this, their reaction would be nothing short of explosive. But his luck didn't stop there. He sensed that someone in the cave was hoping he would break down under the hallucinations, but Christian used that as a catalyst to push himself even further. Back in the present, Christian wants to cash in on the favor his father promised him. He requests permission to use the Black Swamp Knights training grounds. Of course, Count Khazar's face immediately twists with annoyance at such a bold and reckless request. As far as the Count is concerned, a good-for-nothing like Christian has no business being there. After all, the Black Swamp Knights are one of the 3 orders of knights that support the Dark Magic clan, and only the most elite knights are allowed to display their skills there. But Christian stands firm. He's not asking to join their order, just to borrow their training grounds. He believes that watching the bravery of the Black Swamp Knights will have a positive influence on him. After a brief pause, Count Khazar agrees, though he issues a stern warning: don't disgrace yourself in front of the knights, or it will end with your death. Christian acknowledges the warning, and before his father can leave, he asks for another favor. Later, Christian arrives at the training grounds, As he's minding his business, some knights in the background start murmuring among themselves, recognizing him as the good-for-nothing young master. The knights don't even try to hide the fact that they're bad-mouthing the Count's son, which speaks volumes about the state of the magic empire. Here, strength matters more than social status. There's another reason Christian wanted to come to the Black Swamp Knights training grounds. He apparently wants access to enter the library. His father had told him that he could only enter the library once he obtained Deputy Commander Melon's letter of recommendation. Only then would Count Khazar grant him the key. You see, the library houses all the dark magic grimoires of the Khazar house, and to learn dark magic, Chris must gain access. While Chris doesn't object to the condition, he's puzzled as to why it's even necessary since he's an important member of the clan. His father reminds him of the time Christian tried to sell the advanced grimoires on the black market. Even Chris has started to question the kind of life Christian led back then. The title, Good for Nothing, is certainly fitting. Now Chris's top priority is to get the deputy commander's recommendation. Among the knights standing around, Chris's little brother is present too. He doesn't waste a second before throwing a barrage of colorful remarks at his older brother. Of course, Christian finds it a drag that he has to deal with this brat once again. But as he thinks it over, a smile forms on his face. This might actually be a good opportunity for him. Thurn walks up to his older brother, orders him to turn around and never return. He insists that Christian should not throw away the life he narrowly saved in the punishment cave. But Chris remains as sassy as ever, making the brat shudder once again by revealing that it was their father who gave him permission to enter the training grounds. At that moment, another prominent figure walks into the scene. This woman's glare could cut through steel, and it's clear she can't stomach Christian's presence here. Doesn't matter even if the Count gave him permission. For the record, this intimidating lady is Deputy Commander Melon. Her presence alone fills the air with 4-star dark energy, a clear attempt to scare Chris into running away like a sobbing child. But as we know, this is far from enough to intimidate our boy. The onlookers notice how Christian is completely unshaken by her dark energy, and even she tenses up upon realizing how unhinged he seems in the face of it. Christian greets her calmly and initiates the conversation. He acknowledges the wrongdoings of his past and the lack of trust people have in him, but he's ready to prove that he's qualified to use the training grounds. Christian proposes that he will fight against one of the fiends present here and prove himself by winning. Naturally, Deputy Commander Melon dismisses his suggestion as nothing more than a joke. But Christian isn't here to joke around. In a calm tone, he requests that she refrain from using her dark energy during their interaction. He humbly asks for an unarmed duel, as his capacity for dark energy is currently not what it should be due to his debauched lifestyle. Melon considers his request. Even if this is a duel, she can't afford to let the heir get hurt. So she asks him once again if he truly has what it takes to engage in an unarmed duel. Christian remains confident and states that he would like to choose his opponent, none other than his brat of a little brother, Thurn. This infuriates Thurn, who's absolutely livid at being challenged by his good-for-nothing brother. Even Melon thinks Christian is putting his hands into a lion's maw. She warns him to choose his opponent more wisely, considering Thurn is already at 2-star level. For context, 2-star is a level that few 13-year-olds can ascend to. If you don't have the raw talent for it, it doesn't matter if you're 13 or 23. You won't even scratch the surface of this level, let alone ascend to it. But as we already know, Christian is no pushover either. He firmly declares that he wants to fight someone stronger than him, because this is the only way he can prove himself. Fighting Thurn, he believes, is the optimal choice. However, there's a catch. If Thurn is too scared to fight his own brother, it changes the whole dynamic of the duel. Naturally, Thurn falls for the bait and accepts the duel. Soon, the two face off in the center of the training grounds. The other fiends circle around them, eagerly waiting for Thurn to win and for Christian to taste the bitter sting of defeat. But before the duel begins, Christian wants to know how the winner will be decided. He suggests that they fight until one of them surrenders. Melon, clearly displeased with Christian, proposes instead that they continue until one side is completely incapacitated. This way, she believes Thurn will have the chance to seriously cripple his brother, as he wouldn't have the option to surrender. My guy, however, is more worried about his opponent than himself. He doesn't want to seriously beat his little brother. Of course, these jabs rile Thurn up even further, and he's more enraged than ever, itching to show his older brother what's what. Chris seizes the opportunity and makes his first move by slapping the living shit out of his brother. The slap is humiliating and uncalled for, but the duel has already started, so it's all fair game. Thurn tries to slap back, but Christian easily dodges it by simply ducking backward. If Chris is being honest, this is practically an unfair fight with all the odds stacked against him. As a fiend who hasn't even reached 1 star yet, he stands no chance against someone with dark energy. However, in a barehanded duel, things are a little different. Thurn's clumsy moves give Chris the perfect opportunity to strike back, and Chris delivers a gut-wrenching knee smash right into Thurn's stomach. The reason Chris is prevailing in this barehanded fight is the experience he's accumulated from countless battles in his past life. Moreover, if he only counts the dominion of light powers achieved in the punishment cave, he's already at 3-star level. So basically, his brat of a brother doesn't stand a chance. Thurn is looking worse for wear after taking such a beating, and even the onlookers are in absolute awe. Meanwhile, Chris starts throwing jabs to further annoy his little brother. It looks like his silly remarks are doing the trick. Internally, he is having an absolute blast watching this brat struggle. Thurn, on the other hand, is certain that Christian must be using some kind of trick. Christian lets him know there are no tricks at play. It's simply that Thurn is weak sauce. That remark hits hard and Thurn feels the sting. While Chris continues his goofy teasing, Thurn can't take it anymore. He balls up his fist, dark energy exuding from him ominously, and throws a punch. Chris easily avoids the direct hit, but Thurn continues his relentless barrage of punches, none of which even scratch Chris. Eventually, Chris parries one of the punches, and after canceling out his little brother's dark energy, he lands a brutal hit on him. That one punch is enough to make Thurn cough up blood before collapsing to the ground. The spectators burst into murmurs and gossip, believing that Thurn must have let his guard down, or simply didn't want to hurt his trash of a brother. After all, Thurn getting knocked out by his good-for-nothing older brother doesn't make sense. But Deputy Commander Mellon knows exactly what just happened, and it's causing her to go absolutely bonkers with astonishment. Chris, on the other hand, wants Mellon to confirm if he's proven himself, or if there's still something left to do. Mellon, still stunned, confirms that he has indeed proven himself. This confirmation sounds like music to Christian's ears, and now he's ready to set his next plan into motion. Later, sitting in his room, Chris reflects on how he's finally reached 1 star in dark magic. Since he's still not fully accustomed to handling dark energy, and there was a lot of residue left over by Christian, it took longer than expected. As for wielding the power of light at the same time, he'll need to raise his level further before that's possible. Suddenly, his assigned maid, Marie, appears upon his call. She's actually a high-level evil spirit, a banshee. Chris can't help but feel a little spooked to see that they're using a spirit as his maid. He's so creeped out that he even thinks about requesting the Count to replace her. Anyhow, he orders her to fetch some juice, planning to drink it before he starts his training. Marie acknowledges his orders but wants to confirm if she should prepare the juice with human blood, since blood juice tastes far better than anything else. She continues to insist on the blood juice, while Christian, totally disturbed by her morbid suggestions, just wants strawberry juice, nothing more. A while later, as Christian is about to leave to train, the butler calls out to him from behind, suggesting he reconsider going. The butler expresses concern that Christian has been pushing himself too hard lately. He is clearly proud and pleased to see how diligent and sincere the young master has been, even if everyone else deemed him good for nothing. He's always believed in Christian. Christian, however, can see through this bastard's hypocrisy. He shoots the butler a deadly glare, not wanting any validation from a lowly servant. The poor butler quickly apologizes as he didn't mean to overstep his boundaries. With those words, the poor guy leaves, not before wishing Christian a good training session. Chris, however, feels something suspicious about this guy, but he can't quite place his finger on what's wrong. Later, as Chris walks through the grounds, he notices how the behavior and the look in the eyes of the people around him have become softer and more docile towards him. He sees this as a great opportunity to win them over, little by little. After all, when the iron is hot, why not strike? After putting his bag down, he begins swinging his sword. A fiend takes notice of this and promptly goes to Deputy Commander Mellon to report it. He reports that young Master Christian has shown up at the training grounds again today. Hearing this, Deputy Commander Mellon grows serious, her curiosity piqued by Christian's actions. She can't ignore how impressive his movements were during his duel with Thurn, refined and precise. She's eager to find out what Christian is really plotting. What has her on the edge of her seat is the fact that Christian was able to dispel his brother's dark energy at the perfect moment. This revelation explains how he had control of the battle from the very start. If that's the case, he might even have the talent to surpass Lord Eshid de Baron, who is the direct heir of the main family. But then again, Christian is just a bastard who's already lost his dark energy due to his debauched lifestyle. There's no way he can close the enormous power gap between himself and Lord Eshid de Baron. Mellon steps outside, pretending she's unaware of Christian's presence. When she actually steps out, she notices that Christian has dropped his opponent, Cannon. The onlookers are in awe that he defeated one of their own who is a 1-star fiend. It's unfathomable that this bastard has reached 1 star. Even Mellon can't help but stare in awe. Christian, on the other hand, feels disappointed by how weak these highly regarded Black Swamp Knights are. No one seems to pose a real challenge to him. He wonders if anyone here has what it takes to be a true fighter. Naturally, the fiends who hear Christian's jab grow visibly agitated, seeing how he's throwing shade at their ranks. One of the big fiends, named Torin, steps forward to challenge Christian. Seeing this, Chris merely gestures for the big bastard to come forward. He's absolutely thrilled that these clowns are falling right into his traps. Torin, eager for the fight, swings his sword, and they engage in a fierce back and forth. As they exchange blows, Chris reflects on how he never expected them to obediently teach him their knight's secret techniques. He's taking notes on every movement his opponent makes, mapping out the techniques in his mind. It doesn't take long before he realizes that the swordsmanship technique Torin is using is known as mud swordsmanship, a highly rumored style. After noting the technique, he decides to try it out for himself. The moment he does, he lands a precise strike right across Torin's face. With just that much, the once mighty Torin is kissing the ground. As usual, the other fiends witnessing this fight are in utter awe, including Deputy Commander Melon. She now fully realizes that Christian's previous victory against Thurn was no fluke. Once again, my guy expresses his disappointment. Before all this, he used to hold these knights in high regard, but now they've turned out to be nothing more than punching bags. He then directly throws shade at Deputy Commander Melon for nurturing such weak and pathetic warriors. The fiends on the sidelines know full well that Christian should not be messing with Deputy Commander Melon, and Melon thinks the same. She's sure that Christian's unexpected victories are getting to his head, but my guy is ready to prove his prowess, and to do that, he directly challenges her. Of course, the lady takes the bait. In a fit of rage, she swings her sword so hard that the sheer pressure obliterates the ground beneath them. By now, she is absolutely losing it, her rage bubbling up after the constant humiliation Christian has caused her. This display of power is meant to show that she could take him down in seconds if she had to. My guy doesn't shy away from admitting that she indeed has the upper hand with her full strength, but he argues that it's not fair. According to the rules, the use of dark energy is only allowed against opponents up to 1-star level, and since he is only 1-star level, she can't possibly use dark magic against him. She is only allowed to use dark energy. He claims it's only fair they fight with wooden swords. Melon agrees to his suggestion. Even with this handicap, she's sure she can obliterate his legs with just a wooden sword. No need to waste any time with jibber-jabber. Let the battle begin. Deputy Commander Melon takes the initiative, throwing her sword down at Christian. He blocks her direct attack with his own sword, and they engage in a fierce exchange of blows. Their movements are so fast that the onlookers can barely follow. What's even more mind-boggling is that Christian is holding his own against her. Even Melon herself is starting to get agitated, realizing that no attacks are landing on him. Even though he's just a weakling and shouldn't stand a chance against her, the situation is eerily similar to the previous fights where his opponents failed to land a single blow on him. Seeing the distress on her face, Chris can't help but throw jabs at her, which only further irritates her. She raises her sword, charging it with dark energy, and brings it crashing down. But Christian dodges it with ease, charging at her and landing a hard head smash straight to her face. The impact causes her nose to burst. This strike was a calculated risk from our boy's side. He realized that as long as Melon's dark magic was bound, she wouldn't be able to block such an opening with just physical strength alone. His hunch was right on the money. If Melon were a fiend who focused solely on the sword, that wouldn't have worked. Instead of breaking into a cold sweat after having her blood spilled, Melon bursts into hearty laughter. She finds it kind of adorable and funny because she never expected him to headbutt her. Finally, she admits that she was wrong to look down on him and promises to personally give him the extra attention he deserves to help increase his growth. But then, Christian reveals something shocking. When he headbutted her, he scratched her neck. If his nails had been laced with poison, she would have been a goner by now. Melon sincerely accepts her defeat and is ready to grant him whatever wish he requires. However, she wants another duel with him. Chris has no problem with a rematch, but he makes a request in return. Melon agrees without hesitation. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Chris asks if she can kneel before him. It's a shocking request. For Melon, this is an impossible ask. Her loyalty lies with the main family of the dark magic clan, House Baron. Chris acknowledges what she's implying but assures her it won't matter when he ascends as the next leader of the clan, ultimately making him the top dog. Melon is taken aback by this, dismissing it as wishful thinking. After all, there are 5 young lords recognized for succession rights, and they're all direct descendants of the main family. Christian, as a bastard, doesn't stand a chance. Christian flashes a cunning smile, reminding Melon that there's no rule preventing a branch family member from becoming a young lord. Regardless, he accepts the challenge for another duel. However, their next fight will take place in a month, and there will be no restrictions, meaning they can go all out. Melon has no problem with this. In fact, she can already envision the humiliating defeat that awaits him. Chris, on the other hand, warns her not to be too sure. After all, the world is unpredictable. With that, he bids her farewell and promises to see her in a month. He silently vows to make her realize who her true loyalty belongs to. Later, Christian presents the letter of recommendation from Deputy Commander Melon to his father. As he hands over the recommendation letter, he also takes the opportunity to provide feedback on the Fiend's lackluster fundamentals and suggests that more focus be placed on their training. The scene then shifts to a little earlier, where Melon, having faced Christian on the battlefield, reveals everything to his father regarding his growth. Despite his low star rank, he easily defeated opponents with solid foundations, and even Melon herself had been humbled by his unexpected skill. She admits she enjoyed the fight, though the defeat caught her off guard. In the present, the Count continues to stare at his son, taking a long, silent moment to make sure the person standing before him is indeed Christian. Finally, he extends his hand, handing over the key to the library. Later, Christian feels a sense of satisfaction while holding on to the key. Not only did he obtain the library key, but he also earned Melon's trust. You see, Melon is a fiend from the main family of the Dark Magic clan, was once a 6-star high fiend during the Age of Destruction. If Christian wants to take control of the entire Dark Magic clan, he must have her on his side. He hasn't completely won her over yet, but he's confident that a month will be enough time. As he walks away, feeling proud of his achievements, he recalls Count Khazar's confused yet undeniably proud expression. Chris recognizes that even fiends have familial attachments, and he can tell that Count Khazar is a far better father than the one he had in his previous life. For that reason, he promises himself to make his new father proud. Once inside the library, Chris takes note of all the grimoires forbidden in the Dominion of Light, such as blood magic, summoning studies, and curse studies among them. He pulls a book from the shelf, but just as he does, his evil spirit maid suddenly appears, startling him. When he asks what she's doing there, she reveals that she used to be the librarian in this very place. She also admits that she has feelings for Christian, but he doesn't reciprocate her affections. Despite this, she continues to flirt with him, much to his discomfort. On a more serious note, she points out that the grimoire Christian chose is a 4-star dark magic book known as Binding Seal, and she's not sure how he plans to comprehend it. Christian, puffing up his chest, confidently declares that he's a genius. Marie, not buying this crap, nonetheless puts on a supportive facade and praises him. Out of curiosity, she asks why he chose this book, and he cryptically replies that he's trying to catch a rat. The suspense hangs in the air as the scene transitions to Chris doing his usual drills with the fiends. He reflects on his potential suspects that might be the rats he is looking for. First in the list is Thurn, his little brother, who despises him more than anyone in the house. Second is Cox, their butler, who isn't a descendant of the clan but has free access to the punishment cave. Fiends hold the powerful people in higher regard than those of who are of higher social status, so it doesn't make sense for Cox to be circling around a guy like him who is just a weak sauce. It's possible there's a third party behind Cox's actions, but whoever it is wants to bring Christian down. What's most notable, though, is that Cox gave him a dreamstone before he headed to the punishment cave, which is effectively a death sentence. To catch the rats, Chris decides to play the role of the bastard his enemies want him to be. If they see him running his life into the ground, they'll likely get hopeful, making it easier for him to spot who's behind the scheme. He abruptly stops in the middle of his training, throwing a tantrum about how difficult everything is. He quits the drills for the day, deciding to rest. His sudden change catches the others off guard, just as he expected. Later, at the dining table with his father, Chris throws a scene. His father, boiling with fury, feels like a fool for ever thinking his son could redeem himself. In immense disappointment, he leaves the table. As Chris watches the Count sulk, he feels a twinge of sadness, but he knows it's for the greater good of the family. He works hard to spread rumors that he's returned to his old and rebellious ways, like bullying maids while they clean, wasting money like it's water. But when he wants to drink alcohol, his personal maid always makes wine with no trace of alcohol. Chris tries to get her to make real alcoholic drinks because this is part of his plan to catch a rat. He's hoping whoever is behind the plot will think he's back to being the wasteful bastard they want him to be. He then shows his mastery of the Binding Seal spell that catches even his loyal maid off guard. She is left bewildered to see that he has already mastered the spell, but Chris wastes no time in bragging about his genius, something he's been claiming all along. He explains that while all the time he spent causing trouble, he was also secretly studying in order to master multiple spells. Before he can celebrate, his little brother Thurn arrives in his room unannounced. Seeing this, Christian quickly flips his mental switch and instantly transforms from the sober genius into a drunken degenerate bastard, playing the role of a loser. Thurn's eyes narrow with anger as he is finally convinced that nothing has changed about his bozo brother. This angry and intense reaction of Thurn confirms to Chris that he is not involved in any of the schemes against him. Since Thurn is clean, he decides to share a part of his secret with him, revealing that there's a rat in the house, a traitor who wishes to see his downfall. Chris plans to play the part of the reckless fool for now, pretending to be exactly what his enemies want him to be, so they can be easily identified. To further convince his brother, he shows him the wine he's been drinking, letting Thurn smell it to show that it's fake, meant only to maintain his facade. While Chris is still unsure who the rat is, he's certain he's getting closer to luring them out. Just then, a servant rushes in after hearing the sound of breaking glass. Christian immediately returns to his drunken persona, demanding the servant tell the butler that the wine he sent is the wrong one, and to bring him the proper bottle. The servant apologizes profusely before informing Chris that Cox is currently busy. Chris, still acting like a sailor after too many drinks, decides to pay the butler a personal visit. His brother, in the background, can only watch in disbelief seeing how realistically this bastard is performing the role of drunkard bozo. When Christian finally meets Cox, he deliberately flips the bottle of wine over the butler's head, causing it to spill all over him. He accuses him of trying to play dirty tricks by sending him the wrong wine. Cox apologizes and insists that the proper wine will be brought immediately. Chris, however, insists that he fetch it himself. Cox tries to remain calm while explaining that he's dealing with something more pressing and suggests the wine can be delivered later. But Christian continues to push, trying to get a rise out of Cox. Eventually, Cox leaves to retrieve the wine. Chris is astounded by this bastard's patience. Though Cox can mask his emotions, Chris can feel the hostility radiating from him. Once Chris is alone, he begins to go through the documents the butler had been preparing. As he scans the papers, a broad smile spreads across his face when he notices that Butler had been doing embezzlement of funds. If Cox is truly a rat, it's natural that he has tampered with the finances, but there's no clear evidence yet to confirm that he is indeed the rat. Soon enough, Cox returns with the correct wine. Christian, still playing his role, accepts the bottle and wonders if the butler is angry with him for his impudent behavior. The butler, however, appears to be grateful for the opportunity to serve his young master. Before he leaves, Cox relays a message that there are Christian's friends who want to meet him at their usual hideout. Of course, Chris has no idea who these friends actually are. Cox warns him to avoid them, claiming they are trouble. But this only intrigues Chris more, inciting him to meet these mysterious individuals. At the hideout, we are greeted by a lavish spread of food. As Chris sits there, his attention is immediately drawn to the terrified maid serving drinks. He can't help but comment on how these pigs have made the poor girl pour drinks for their fat asses. As she serves him a glass, he notices something off about it. Without hesitation, he throws the wine in the face of the fatty sitting at the table. He does not beat around the bush before accusing them of spiking his drink with something shady. Before things can escalate further, he uses dark magic to knock the maid unconscious, not wanting to traumatize her with the scene that is about to unfold. The group is stunned to see him use dark magic, surprised that Christian has already learned such powerful techniques. But before they can react, my guy slams both of the culprits onto the table, causing blood to splatter. The fatty demands to know why he was attacked. Chris, in response, pulls out a dagger, because he won't tolerate any pretenses from them. After some interrogation, the skinny man finally confesses that they were only following orders from someone who had blackmailed them with drugs he and his friend smuggled. They had been ordered to frame Christian for a murder they intended to commit on the maid. Chris presses them for the identity of the mastermind. The skinny guy hesitates, but in order to make him speak, my guy lets this bastard know who is calling the shots here. Reluctantly, the skinny bastard reveals the truth. Cox is the one behind the plot. With everything exposed, the both guys beg for their lives, promising to do whatever Christian commands. Christian, after a brief moment of contemplation, agrees to spare them on the condition that they follow his orders without question. Just in case, he makes them promise this twice, and once they promise, he uses his binding spell over them. The next day, Cox rushes to Count Khazar to report that Christian has committed murder. He claims that Christian, drunk, killed the servant girl who had been serving his drinks and dumped her body into the river. Hearing this, the Count immediately orders that Christian be brought before the Fiend Court to answer for his actions. At the court, Christian immediately pleads his innocence. The Count, however, is not convinced and insists that the testimonies of witnesses will prove his guilt. Christian calmly declares that the murder never happened, and therefore, the witnesses must be mistaken. To prove his point, Christian points to the maid, who, to everyone's shock, walks into the courtroom perfectly alive and well. The two conspirators begins to panic when they realize that they are about to get screwed. The maid reveals that Christian actually helped her by escorting her home and even giving her money to help pay her rent. As far as she's concerned, it was the two men standing there who tried to kill her. The court erupts in shock, and the two culprits are exposed for their treachery. To hammer the final nail in the coffin, my guy uses his magic mojo and makes his two friends talk like the parrots they are under his command. They admit to giving a false report about Christian taking the life of a young girl. Furthermore, they were ordered by Butler Cox to frame the young master for this murder. Unsurprisingly, the butler begins to panic and starts defending himself as if his life depends on it, which, well, it does. Chris already knew this jackass would react exactly like this, so he had already prepared for it. He addresses his father and requests to borrow his authority for a while because he has a direct question he wants to ask Butler Cox. He promises that this one question alone will separate the milk from the water. His father agrees and promptly gives Cox the opportunity to defend himself. So Cox is advised to stand in the defendant's stand. Before Chris can ascend to jury's stand, his father lets him know that if he abuses his authority, he will be stripped off it immediately. Once Chris ascends to the judge's stand, he proceeds to question Cox with the authority he has been granted. First of all, he wants defendant Cox to swear that he will speak nothing but the truth. Cox, of course, swears right away, not that he has a choice. But as soon as Cox swears twice, my guy uses his binding seal magic on him. Even the people in the courtroom can't help but notice. Their reaction is one of awe because there is no way in hell a mere brat should be able to wield 4-star dark magic. Before proceeding further, we learn a little about this binding seal. Basically, my guy modified the binding seal so it could be used even with a lower star rank. However, it has additional conditions. Chris needs the target to swear twice. Now it makes sense why he made Cox swear twice, and also why he made those two goons promise twice before hijacking their brains. Now that the binding seal is a success, my guy questions this shithead about why he hired those two to slander his name. The binding seal begins consuming Cox's mind when he tries to avoid answering. He manages to endure the pain for a bit, but eventually he reveals that he received orders from someone. The man who gave him the order also threatened him about the corruption he had been involved in with the finances, so Cox had no choice but to comply. Before making Cox admit anything further, my guy wants him to confirm whether he is talking about the embezzlement he has been committing behind the Count's back. After confirming this little fact, Chris proceeds further with the trial, asking about the person who gave him the order. When Cox refuses to speak, the pain intensifies, forcing him to utter the name, Sir Eshid. This news drops like a nuke on everyone when they realize that it was the second son of the Dark Magic clan, Sir Eshid de Baron, who was pulling the strings. Cox further reveals that now that he has spilled everything, he will be killed by Eshid. But before Sir Eshid can pose any threat to Cox's life, my guy severs this traitor's head right in front of Count Khazar. Before anyone can start yapping about his bold move, Chris clarifies that he punished the sinner under the authority he borrowed from the Count. The Count then questions Christian about why he deemed Cox deserving of a death sentence. Well, Chris's reason is simple. Even if this bastard were left alive, the main family would likely fabricate evidence and cover up the incident. And getting on the main family's bad side is the last thing they can afford. Furthermore, this incident has revealed to everyone how Eshid tried to sabotage him. In the next moment, Count Khazar conjures a portal, and both father and son step into the secret training grounds to have a private chat. After all, there were just too many people in the courtroom. From what the Count understands, the only reason Eshid is causing trouble is because of the succession conflict. The Count knows very well that one family's power and authority are directly tied to the successor they support, so it's only natural for Eshid to feel threatened. However, with things as they stand now, the Count wants to support the first young lady since the first young lord is not an option. But this is then Chris puts himself up as the next option. He wants to volunteer to become the next successor. It goes without saying that the Count is dismissive of the idea. It's impossible. But Christian reminds his father that anyone from a branch family can be recognized as a potential successor if they possess the necessary ability. His father, however, believes that this is only true on paper. Something like this happening in their clan is unprecedented. That's when Chris reminds his father that Eshid sees him as a potential rival, which is the only reason he wanted to eliminate him. The Count does acknowledge that Christian might have been more talented than Eshid during childhood, but as of now, Eshid is far ahead. Chris, however, believes that he has already started catching up, and to speed up his growth even further, he wants his father to use his authority to recommend him for the Sacred Dark Rite, which is set to take place 2 months from now. The Count reminds him that one must be at least a 2-star to even consider participating in the rite. While that's the least of Christian's concerns, he promises to reach 2-star within the next 2 months, so he hopes his father will grant him this favor. Well, looks like the Count has no choice but to heed the young master's command. Later, we see servants murmuring among themselves about how much our boy has changed. Rumors are spreading that the Count has been personally training him these days. The training Christian is going through is said to be so tough that even senior knights can barely endure it. We then promptly cut to our boy, who is cutting down stuff with the new sword techniques he has learned. Seeing his progress, even the Count is astonished at how fast Christian is adapting, like he's learning in days. The Count is further shocked when he sees Christian pull off another technique against a training dummy, slicing it limb from limb. Apparently, Chris mixed the mud swordsmanship with the black scythe sword energy, creating an ultimate technique capable of cutting clean through, something mud swordsmanship alone couldn't achieve. Of course, the Count's soul practically leaves his body upon seeing such prowess. Normally, using 2 techniques at the same time would make it difficult to cast curses, but Chris shrugs it off as super easy. In fact, it's barely even an inconvenience for him. 15 days pass, and we see our boy totally drained on the ground. While this dude can pull off complex swordsmanship mojo, he can't handle the strain of cardio after running. What's worse, there's no way to cheat his way out of it since stamina accumulates gradually. As he catches his breath, Deputy Commander Mellon pops up out of nowhere. She's just here to give him a soft reminder about the looming duel, which is just around the corner. She's eagerly anticipating the fateful day when they will exchange blows again. While he's trying his best to improve, she believes it's still not enough to close the power gap between them. Thus, his dream of making her kneel before him is just a thought that exists in his head. But Chris is confident, determined to make this thought a reality. She likes his warrior spirit, so before leaving, she commends him for it and hopes to see him bring out the best version of himself, just so he can entertain her enough. For context, Mellon is currently an upper 4-star. Within a single stage, there are 3 tiers: lower, middle, and upper. Even though Christian is an upper 1-star, he's still way below her level. But it looks like our bro already has a perfect plan to overcome this gap. After all, he's a rich brat now, and he plans to leverage that to his advantage. Later, he meets his evil spirit maid, Marie, who looks drop-dead gorgeous. Since this is their first outing together, she made sure to dress properly. It almost seems like she's turning this into a date. Christian, of course, denies inviting her along. He had only told her to prepare his bags, and that's it. But the way Marie looks so obsessive, it doesn't seem like the poor guy can catch a break. He even asked his father if he could lay off this obsessive, love-struck evil spirit and get an attendant who's human. But his father sadly reminded him of the master-servant contract Christian has with Marie. After all, a high-ranked banshee can't be managed without a contract. What's worse is that if he wants to cancel this contract, he's required to have a deep kiss with Marie. Back to the present, Christian once again reminds Marie that she can't come, as he's headed to a place where they'll encounter a lot of people. He worries that she might end up hurting people with her spiritual energy, which he doesn't like. Of course, Marie starts acting like a helpless, cute, snobbing puppy. After further guilt-tripping him about how she hasn't seen the outside world in decades, she finally charms her way into convincing him. While Christian reluctantly gives her permission to tag along, he still wants her to stay away from other people. The girl literally flips from a sobbing mess to a charming pretty lady upon getting permission. As she starts following him, she's quite curious about the purpose of this outing, to which he says that he wants to rack up some profits. Marie quickly showers him with the gold coins he told her to carry, reminding him that he already has plenty of money. So why does he need more? First of all, he makes it clear that this money isn't enough, and secondly, he wants her to put the damn money back. Anyhow, she continues to guess what he might be after, perhaps more gold or land ownership. But every guess she makes is way off the mark. Once they get to the carriage they're supposed to drive, Christian is hit by yet another uninvited guest tagging along on this journey. And that person is, of course, his little brother. Thurn was expecting his arrival like a snobby brother, something Chris didn't expect. Apparently the kid wants to watch over him, in case he returns to his scoundrel self again. Also, it doesn't make it any better that this man reveals his intentions of gambling. Dude's trying to have a portfolio like the Tate brothers. Gambling isn't exactly a bad thing, especially since they're demons, and it's an activity recommended by their king. To make sure things go right, Thurn wants to follow his brother, which gives Chris the impression that he's really starting to worry for him. He teases the kid about it, causing a funny reaction from his baby brother. Thurn wants to beat him at the game, while Chris is starting to realize he's going to have so much fun exploiting the crap out of him. Arriving at their glamorous destination, both Marie and Thurn are stunned. To properly attend the event, Chris hands them a bunch of masks to wear to ensure their disguise. Also, he tasks her with a secret mission that Thurn doesn't know about. Chris simply instructs him to follow along, and shortly afterwards, they make their way inside the building. Immediately, they're taken as a joke by the people around. They were like fresh bait to line up their pockets after all. In the mood to have some fun, Chris makes a bet with his brother. The goal is to make the most amount of money in 1 hour, and the loser gets to decide a title for the other person. Chris picks out a long-ass title for his brother to call him upon his loss, and he excellently exploits his little brother's ego to force him into accepting the bet. The little brother goes on ahead with a fiery resolve. As for Chris, in his first game he wins rather easily, but he knows the dark secrets of the gambling den. The house is smart, it goads your ego by slowly handing you small wins at the start, and shortly after, pull the rug under you the second their target places a giant bet. Though he knew about their dark secrets, the same wasn't true for his brother. He kept losing because he was caught in their trap. What's worse, Chris was pissing him off in an effort to make him lose even more. As they're arguing about how much money they lost, Chris notices that the con men have already placed their eyes on his brother being a loser. He senses that they'll soon try to exploit the kid. Annoyed, Thurn goes on to gamble some more, even against Chris's warnings. But deep down, this is what he wants. Some time passes and Thurn ends up losing some more. In that duration, Marie, who had turned invisible, already located all of the con men working against them. Meanwhile, poor Thurn loses a staggering 10,000 amount. After the gambling session, Chris goes on to meet a certain merchant. The servants are shocked by his sudden arrival, and he wastes no time by ordering them to call over their master. Grantle of the Merchant Guild happily assists the young lord. He's renowned as the shrewd merchant, but the truth is, he's actually the owner of the gambling den they visited. Chris requests a private chat with the bastard, accusing him of scamming his baby brother with his con men. In his defense, the merchant explains that he has no control over the actions of his men as he only owns the gambling hall. But Marie instills the literal fear of death in this man as he kneels down apologizing for what he did. He pleads for mercy and is willing to offer compensation for the troubles caused. The conversation is right where Chris wanted it to be, as he demands 1,000,000 rupees for the damages. Even the merchant is shocked by his demand and shares that they don't have that kind of money around. So this guy drops the ball and goes all the way down to 200,000 rupees instead. Thankfully, the merchant can afford that, even though it would cost them a lot. Finally, Chris has one last request. The scene jumps to the aftermath of what Chris bought with the amount. He got a lot of combat equipment, and even received the Holy Sword Grenade as a bonus artifact. This weapon is truly special, as it was made by the sacrifice of the hero's soul. The weapon remained in use even after the hero's corrupted state, and it was once highly revered by the demons. But in its current state, it is abandoned and gathering dust. Chris has a plan for it eventually. Aside from that, he hands Marie a beautiful pendant that she was eyeing on as a gift, clarifying that this doesn't mean anything else. Marie is stunned, because it's the first time after her death that she received a gift like this. It's truly special to her. Satisfied with his decision, Chris decides that it's time for them to go home. Marie responds with the happiest smile and offers him even more blood juice from now on. Which sounds weird until she reveals that the strawberry juice he's been drinking with glee already contained some of it. Bro is hoping to God that it's just some twisted joke from her end. Also, Chris realizes that he's actually forgetting about something, or rather someone. It's actually Thurn, who was robbed to death until he only had 1 rupee left to his name. Thurn roars at his brother for basically sleeping his ass off and abandoning him. Because this dude nearly got himself sold off as a slave, if not for the fact that someone recognized him. The sleepyhead reminds Thurn that he should be referring to him by a different name. After all, the kid lost a bet after all, so now he has to bear the consequences. A look of horror looms over Thurn's soul as he realizes he has to permanently address his shithead of a sibling by Honorable King Emperor Majesty Big Brother now. He tries voicing the name out loud. The poor guy eats up all the embarrassment while Chris enjoys torturing him. He reminds him to address him with proper respect from now on. Thurn turns to leave, vowing to turn the tables and make him regret this one day, but I doubt that day will ever come. Meanwhile, the playful Chris realizes that his inevitable death will come at the hands of this young boy, and he knows the scumbag Eshid is involved for such an outcome. As the son of Langham, the acting patriarch of his dark magic clan, Eshid is boasted as the top heir of the family. And even though Chris isn't exactly Christian but merely inhabiting his body, if he were to become the heir, it's inevitable for him to ultimately cross paths with Eshid. Knowing what happens to him in the future, he is hell-bent on declaring his revenge against Eshid. But for now, he needs the full support of Melon to worry about. The holy blade known as the Grunade has met many challenges throughout its lifetime, and yet, the only reason no one touches it anymore is because not a single man was able to conquer the blade. Our boy is curious how he stacks up on that list, and grasps it tightly, when all of a sudden issues him a small shock. Which means the sword doesn't take a liking to his dark magic powers, which is to be expected considering it is the representation of the light. However, Bro is ready to bend the rules on this one, and believes deciphering the pattern of its magic power should do the trick for him. Then he begins hammering the shit out of the blade, knowing that it's doing something. Showing his conviction, Chris declares that he's got all the time in the world to beat the ever-living shit out of the weapon until it gives up and finally obeys him. The fucking hilarious part about all of this is that even the weapon is shivering hearing him declare that. A few days passed, and Chris turned up at the training grounds to meet his father. To his shock, he sees a familiar woman before his eyes, until the realization reaches him. This woman is none other than the commander of the Black Shadow Knights, a beautiful and stern lady called Marion. She's got a long history behind her, as she's the daughter of the Elder Clan's head, and the master of the Dark Magic Clan, as well as serving as the older sister to his father and Langham. Marion protects the Elder Clan head and also takes care of any secret missions within the clan. In other words, he was seeing the baddest bitch alive among the elites of the Dark Magic Clan, though that only struck his curiosity on what she was doing here. Count Khazar tells his son about Marion's purpose. Apparently she wants to resolve the matter regarding Cox, and finds it problematic that Chris committed a hasty decision on ending the man's life. Realizing that she might be serving as an ally to Eshid, Chris thinks that he's in trouble. He teasingly remarks that it's interesting for an important figure such as herself to tend to a rather insignificant matter. Addressing the child's boldness, the woman clarifies that it's not she's here for Cox on behalf of her superior, but instead, she's here for Chris. Hearing that, Chris quickly realizes that he may have gotten the golden ticket to finally win the Elder Clan head over. However, Marion is of a different opinion, and thinks that it's arrogant of the boy to challenge someone like Melon while boasting the strength of a mere 2-star warrior. She even suggests calling off the match, but our boy isn't ready to throw in the towel. He reveals his control over Grunade, shocking the woman greatly. Marion wasn't expecting him to be this much of a troublemaker, and even hollers at her brother for saying untrue things about his son. After all, Chris was planning to use a holy sword in the upcoming match. He taunts her, questioning if he's not allowed to use such a weapon, especially since his only objective is to win, no matter the method at his disposal. Marion surprisingly remarks that even the Elder Clan head couldn't conquer Grunade, so a mere boy like Chris is only going to meet his doom for being arrogant enough to use it. However, Chris is in the mood to fuck with her ego and fully unsheathes the blade, revealing that he's got it completely under his control. At first, Marion questions if this is some kind of trickery or if he's using a fake, but the moment she grabs onto the blade, it burns the crap out of her hand, causing her to toss the blade aside. She can't believe that Chris is casually picking up the weapon without any issues. He doesn't give away the main reason, but he does reveal one thing. The only reason he's able to do the impossible is because he's a genius. His confident declaration just now impressed his father, though their attention is thwarted when Melon walks right out and joins the conversation. She's impressed that he was able to tame the blade, but argues that the outcome of their battle will not change, as she'll make sure today is his last. The battle begins with a heavy swing from Melon, causing our boy to go on the defensive. Her speed and strength are on a whole different level, without any restrictions holding her down. Chris's confidence is starting to wane as their blades go on to clash against each other. Since Grenade is a holy sword, it affects the dark power of Melon's blade. But an even more impressive feat is the fact that this boy is maneuvering excellently while using the blade. He's actually pushing Melon back, causing Count Khazar to question how this is happening. The observant Marion breaks down the process of his attacks. Chris is adjusting the demon's energy every second so that he doesn't suffer the backlash from the holy sword. Breaking off from the confrontation, Melon inquires if her opponent was trying to predict her movements just now. Chris playfully shares that he's got a good eye. Now he knows that swordsmanship requires an initial stance to conduct a full attack. For example, a downward strike requires raising one's arm, and your shoulders give off the movement. This detail didn't change whether you were a professional fighter or a beginner. Melon decides to put out all the stops and shocks him with a different approach. She uses some kind of binding spell that catches Chris. Though he was capitalizing on her swordsmanship, Melon reminds him that she's also a mage on top. However, even this doesn't affect him much, as Chris effortlessly dispelled her attack using a purification artifact. Bro has to thank his dad for his artifact, even though Count Khazar doesn't even recall giving it to him. Chris reveals that he's quite the excellent thief, so it's okay. Apart from that, he believes one's equipment is also a testament to their skill. Saying so, he tosses some kind of sphere that explodes up in the air. Melon was distracted when the real orb came from just ahead of her, exploding viciously and wrapping her in the destruction. Chris remembers purchasing this artifact as well, but he knows this much isn't enough to beat his opponent. Melon's blade cuts past the fire and reaches Chris, who not only blocks the attack, but also shatters her weapon with a smile. The more this fight goes on, the more he impresses Count Khazar. Melon emerges from the aftermath of the orb, and maniacally reveals that she's having way too much fun. The chick's gone crazy, and she's curious how he's going to deal his next attack. Even Marion is afraid of seeing her lash out in such a state. But Chris capably uses this moment to his advantage, letting her attack slip by as he pins the blade to her neck. The battle is won, much to Melon's surprise, Marion's disappointment and Khazar's amazement. Instead of being a sore loser, Melon simply lets out a laugh, realizing that he did all that just to make a point. And now, he wants the reward for the proposal he made. Though he's also fine with respecting her wishes if she doesn't want to serve him. Melon questions if she can have more exciting duels if she chooses to stick by his side. Chris promises that they'll have tons of battles, and officially makes her his own ally. After the fight, we get to see Marion's perspective, who hasn't forgotten his meticulous control over the dark energy. She vividly remembers her master being unable to withstand Grenade for more than a few moments. To control the Holy Sword, one would have to constantly alter the waves of dark magic, bypassing its rejection effect. But in practice or real combat, that's a really tough call. Even the clan head only thought the demon of Gehenna, or perhaps the demonic dragon, could achieve such a feat. Or maybe some talented fool who could easily manipulate the course of dark energy without trouble. In this case, Chris is that person. Having seen what happened in his fight, Marion amuses the possibility of her father's wish finally coming to existence. In the next scene, we get to see the intimidating orc chef skillfully making a strawberry cake before Chris's eyes. His skills are no joke, and the chef is curious what brings the young master here today of all places. Apparently, Chris wants to make some cookies so that he can give them to someone. His annoying freaky-ass maid is jealous he might be looking for a girlfriend. But Chris waves away any thoughts, and even though the chef offers to make cookies for him, this time he wants to handle the process on his own. As he's saying all that, Bro gets hit with a damn splash of strawberry mush. The orcs are viciously beating the crap out of strawberries, to the point Chris is questioning if this is real blood. Moving forward, we get to see Chris coming to see off his great-aunt Marion. He knew she was about to leave and wanted to say goodbye, a gesture she appreciates. Even more, he hands her a gift-wrapped present. They're delicious cookies he made with love, much to her delight. Marion really enjoys the gift, and Count Khazar suddenly realizes why his son asked him about her favorite snack. Turns out he's a master manipulator with the smallest of details. Marion is even more stunned to hear that the kid personally baked these for her. Upon taking a bite, she's instantly swooned by the taste. Chris wanted to hear those words, glad to hear that. Of course, his aunt wants to return him a gift for his gesture, so she lets him ask for anything. This was the moment he was waiting for. Chris deepens his tactic by requesting her to be his true aunt from now on, even though they're already blood-related. Marion wonders if there's a deeper meaning behind the boy's words, and recalls that he's going to participate in the dark rite ritual. She realizes that he wants her support in the upcoming succession conflict. Unfortunately, she can't lend him a favor like that. The thing is, the representatives of the main family must be unbiased in the outcome. That is their one and only rule. Chris argues that he wasn't really looking for something like that. All he cares about is having a closer relationship with his aunt. Marion can't believe that this kid has no ulterior motives behind his words. He puts on an Oscar-level acting performance with his adorable face, pleading with her to help him out. Marion likes his forwardness, and knowing that he baked delicious cookies for her, she's taken a liking to him. She requests more cookies from his side on her next visit, and seeing their relationship blossom like this, Count Khazar wipes a tear off his eyes. Chris is out here really trying his hardest, telling his aunt he's gonna fuck up the taste if she doesn't assist him when needed. Marion smiles, addressing the boy and finally offering him a chance to join the Black Shadow Knights. She's already accounted for his skills for his battle against Melon, and there's a great potential resting inside of him, even greater than the Elder Clan head. But before he's able to bring out that potential, his rivals will pose him a lot of trouble. Marion is worried about that dark future, while Chris reveals that he's okay with dying as long as he's able to conquer the obstacles in his path. Despite her invitation, Chris is confident in his victory and assures her he'll win. This kind of confidence is almost detrimental from her perspective, but she knows that he's an exception and might be telling the truth. That's why she can't stop him. Marion mounts her horse and offers the boy a final piece of advice, strongly warning him against the first young lady. Julianne appears to be the gentlest of them all, but Marion deems her a greater threat than even Eshid, and claims that he'll understand why soon enough. Chris appreciates her advice and bids her farewell. The scene ends with Marion gaining a positive view of her nephew as she returns the farewell. Back in his room, Chris is in a state of contemplation. Marion and his father were both competent 6-star level warriors, but he's yet to hear much about their contribution during the Great War or what role they served. The Magic Empire boasted many combatants, and he guessed that the number would at least be enough to give the forces of light serious trouble. However, he isn't looking for a repeat of his past. For now, he is compelled by the desire to become even stronger. In the next scene, he shares a meeting with his father, who called his boy for a talk. But to his utter shock, he couldn't believe that Chris had already reached 2-star level. The kid has grown to that level in a month's time. Chris is acting casual, reminding his father that he's built differently. Returning to the topic at hand, he wonders what's up. Count Khazar reveals that the main house has contacted them, and that he told them about the participation of both Thurn and Chris for the sacred dark ritual. Unfortunately, only Thurn was approved to join the competition, and it's because of Chris's shitty reputation of wasting their family's wealth and engaging in all kinds of heinous acts. The allegations, or more like straight facts in this case, are hitting our boy like a Mike Tyson uppercut. He gets launched to the ground and is at the verge of death when his father oddly voices support for his son. Chris gets up and asks if Langham was responsible for the main decision. But as it turns out, it's someone else's hand at play. Both father and son realize that it's the working of Loin de Baron. Loin is the direct descendant of the main house and the main celebrity of the ceremony. Let's explore what the Holy Dark Ceremony is truly like. It's a ritual where certain candidates share a special kind of darkness extracted from the dimensional shadow. Since the amount is limited and can only be shared to a certain extent, candidates are supposed to brawl it out to vouch for their competence. This also means that the more powerful candidates end up with the most amount of darkness. As a consequence, that is the key to becoming the family's heir or the prince. In this case, Lowen's victory will make him the 6th prince, and if that happens, Chris's plans will be shattered. Count Khazar emphasizes that he'll speak to them once more, and they can always use Marion if something happens. But Chris stops him, believing he's more than capable of handling this situation. Khazar grabs his shoulder, acknowledging the boy's talent. However, he wants to support him this time, a gesture that the kid really appreciates. However, this kid is a bratty scoundrel who has his own ways of doing something, and he makes an ugly, villainous face just to prove his father a point. The boy questions if Count Tyraman's family is also participating in the ceremony. Turns out the 3rd son is indeed a participant, and that kid, who is even more of a lowlife than Chris, ended up vouching against his participation. Seeing his father's temper tantrum, Chris is realizing that his father really loves his children apparently. He tells him to calm down, as he intends to make his haters eat their words. He knows that the Tyraman family hosts the Ebony Hunt event, so he's just going to become a participant of that hunt. The scene cuts to Marion returning to her lord after completing her mission. She speaks highly of Chris, much to the Elder Clan head's surprise, who remembers the kid being a fool and nothing more up until to this point. Of course, Marion believes that he's changed quite a lot, so the patriarch proceeds to ask if the boy meets the qualifications to fulfill his wish. The commander reflects that this wish, the one that he's so desperate about, requires overturning fate itself, the desire to break the shackles of death with forbidden magic. Though Marion is unsure at this point, she can say one thing with confidence. The kid is the closest chance of him ever achieving that impossible wish. Hearing those words, the patriarch is glad, even though the family consensus is against his participation in the dark ceremony. Of course, not even the Lord Patriarch is willing to oppose the decision, because he thinks the kid should be able to find a solution for himself to overcome this challenge. Despite Marion arguing otherwise and vouching for the support of the kid's participation, the old geezer hauntingly quiets her shut. In her reflection of his demeanor, Marion remarks that this is just the kind of man he was. He had exceptional expectations and became ruthless in response. The elder clan head wasn't expecting her to speak so highly of the boy. Declaring bloodsucker, he calls for Simon, who is the head steward of the clan. Having heard the conversation in its fullest, Simon is tasked with the duty to watch over the boy in close proximity, observing his every action until the holy dark ceremony. Though he's happy to execute that command, Simon also wants to play a little prank on the child. The head patriarch looks over with a cold stare and reminds him not to get too comfortable. Something tells me bloodsucker over here is dangerous as hell. Meanwhile, Marion wishes for the child to do his best, clearly worried for what's to come. The scene goes back to Chris, who's enjoying his analysis. Having reached the 2-star level poses a new challenge, and that is reaching the 3-star level, which seems far away for now. It's exactly why he requires ebony, and with it, he can gather a ton of magic in a relatively short amount of time. Thanks to the Tiraman family hosting the Ebony Hunt event, he's lucky to participate at this time. The only issue? It's that, even after achieving the goal of capturing Beast Carazo, acquiring ebony isn't guaranteed. A special condition has to be fulfilled to fully get your hands on it. Chris exits the carriage, meeting the old merchant who appears empty-handed. The moment he lets out his bag, our boy tosses it and reveals a bunch of damn coins as a gift for him. Clearly, he wasn't looking for these as a gift. Chris teases the crap out of him, reminding him that he knows about his illegal dealings going around and how the fat man has been avoiding taxes as well. These sudden fact checks are killing the man, but Chris is more than happy to turn a blind eye as long as the merchant cleans up his mess. Lastly, he's come here for a little something called the Grey Pill. It's an exquisite item only available on the black market. And what do you know? It's expensive as fuck. Chris doesn't give a damn and asks Marie to use her methods. The chick goes batshit crazy and whips out her torture weapons to get him. It's the easiest method because this guy instantly folds, much to Chris's amusement. On top of that massive request, he also wants him to catch a good dagger and some armor for him alongside it. Saying that, he boards the carriage, and while the old man is cursing the shit out of him on the inside, he crumbles in defeat. Marie learns that the young master has one more destination to take care of before returning home. He tells the coachman to stop and goes his way. Marie sees him staring down some kind of aphrodisiac. This pink elixir seems intimidating to our boy, while Marie is out here questioning if he's been engaging in sus activities lately. Chris denies the allegations while Marie's graphics bump up to 100 with that JoJo-ass stare. Chris apparently needs the aphrodisiac for someone else, specifically his father, who appears to be getting older. As for the server, he tells the bastard to keep this conversation secret until his grave. Anyway, Chris returns to meet his father alongside his brother. Torturing Thurn like he should, bro, makes him say out his long-ass title. Thurn simply advises his brother not to get hurt during the ebony hunt, while our boy teases him for being worried about his brother. Their quarrel is stopped with their father ordering Chris to beat the crap out of the Tiraman family's contestants. The genius mage promises that he'll return with good news. Funnily enough, Count Khazar is still not over the long title and teases Thurn about it as well. The scene cuts to the Tiraman estate, where an orange goblin waiter doesn't permit Chris to enter the manor. Chris learns that the young Lord Alois has issued an exclusive order, forbidding him from entering. Applying pressure with his words, the young master questions if he's being told to stay elsewhere in the capital. Poor Goblin is intimidated, but alas, he basically says yes. Though Chris's servants jump in to protect his name, he stops them and continues to apply pressure, asking who's going to pay for the hotel. The servant responds that he can merely charge the Tiraman family for it, which is music to our boy's ears. Something tells me this man is about to break their bank. And that's exactly what happens, because this smartass actually goes for the wildest hotel, which is going to cost them 100,000 rupees for their stay. Chris is more than happy to burn someone else's money while he's at it. While they're discussing what to do next, the trunk opens with Marie popping out like a terrible surprise. Chris wasn't expecting this outcome and wonders what the hell's wrong with her. She ended up hiding in his luggage as his most loyal maid. Chris is clearly annoyed when all of a sudden, Alois the Third Prince roars at him for handing them a giant bill. Our boy treats him like a joke, despite Alois being the star of the ebony hunt for the year. Of course, Chris didn't just want to stay in any hotel, so he picked the nicest estate he could think of. He taunts Alois for being mad, especially when he's the one who issued that kind of order. Getting pissed, Alois unleashes a beast, ready to throw hands right here and now. This creature is actually the Tyraman-style beast, with an ability to control magic. Different from the taming techniques, this technique involved the usage of dark magic to control beasts through fear. Certain feelings are instilled within the creature, and the process is complex, requiring time to master. Regardless, Chris doesn't give a damn as he's more than happy to beat down the kitty cat. He asks Marie to whip out their own defense against a scary kitty like the one in front of them. In response, Chris prepares himself a damn staff, provoking Alois to come try him out. The enraged prince releases the intimidating creature to attack Chris. And I'm not gonna lie, he might have blocked that lunge just now, but that must have taken some serious balls to stand his ground. The creature actually knocks Chris aside, making him taunt the third prince for abusing numbers in a fight. He lays down a condition. The condition is simple. If he wins this battle, he's gonna join the ebony hunt as a bodyguard, and not a drive man. Alois is too busy getting enraged. He mounts the creature and attempts to crush Chris in a single attack. The beast actually shatters the ground upon impact, but the human is nowhere to be found. Bro pops up from behind like a sneaky-ass ninja and beats the shit out of Alois with his wooden stick of destruction. After eating a good portion of his attacks, Alois gets even more agitated. However, this time, when the creature tries to charge up on him, it sees something. It is driven back by the intimidating fear of death looming over Chris, causing it to whimper away like a scaredy cat. Alois, now even more ashamed, doesn't know what's going on. The funny thing is, all Chris had to do was chalk up an illusion spell to fool the creature. But he thinks it works like a charm against silly creatures. The third prince refuses to bow down and conjures a second beast in its place. This time it's a horse. Chris is unafraid and lectures him on an interesting tidbit regarding punks. Then he lunges forth sharply, knocking his fucking ass out with a single strike. Chris completes his sentence, emphasizing that he isn't gonna wait the entire fucking chapter to end just to let his opponent whip out an ability. Bro really said this isn't Dragon Ball Z and you ain't Goku turning Super Saiyan 3. The indulgent young master is enjoying a gambling session shortly afterwards. Yeah, apparently this is his way of resting, which is quite the expensive rest if you ask me. The scoundrel merely wants to enjoy honoring his name. Marie is okay with him doing whatever the heck he wants, so long he doesn't drink. Poor guy has to deal with ginger ale instead of alcohol, which is arguably a tougher battle than the one he had earlier. The servants of the Tyraman family are baffled to keep an eye on this guy upon Arlos's orders. Churs turns to offer them a chance to enjoy the game with him. After all, he did end up kicking their master's butt, so there's a good chance Arlos won't be waking up until tomorrow. The offer seems tempting, but his servants are loyal to Arlos, so they decline him. Well, what ends up really happening is this guy getting fully knocked out after indulging a bit too much. Bro is so out cold that even the servants think they shouldn't worry about him anymore. They're just gonna file the report and check in for the day. The funny thing? This was his plan all along. Chris effortlessly manipulates them and wonders if they're about to move. He packs his stuff, telling Marie not to follow him, which, as you can expect, must be a really tough call for the freaky maid. Also, remember the aphrodisiac from earlier? She still thinks he's using it for himself instead of his father. Marie is ashamed that he's going out to enjoy some time with the ladies. Chris is baffled by her lack of filter because apparently she thinks in a singular dimension only. The scene cuts to the Kython mountain range, which is supposed to be the hidden domain of the Tyraman family. Demonic beasts run rampant here, which is why Chris is locating their hunting ground. He quickly finds it and thinks the security is pretty crap with only 2 guards protecting the place. Thanks to his invisibility magic that he learned from his stupid maid, he's able to go right past them without worrying about getting caught. Walking right up to the altar, Chris knows that this is where the accumulated darkness reaches its climax. The place is just as spooky as he thought, but now he has to think of a way to gather the darkness. Recalling his conversation with a damn furry, he remembers that the goal is to make Karazo take its own life. The beast must be driven to extreme fear, to the point it sees death as its only way of escape. In the conflict that will follow a feeling of terror and joy, a perfect moment will arise, where light will transform into darkness. It's also the reason Tyraman controls beasts through their darkness hunts. Right now, Chris's true goal is to steal their secret technique, and allow the mix of aphrodisiac he obtained to send Karazo into a forceful frenzy. Then he'll steal the darkness for himself. But unfortunately, he doesn't have enough time to master the technique, so he tries for an alternative way. Suddenly, Chris feels a terrifying presence, causing him to jolt back and wonder if there's someone around. But surprisingly, no one is there. He is drawn to an empty cave, which upon entering, he feels an incredible force of malice greeting him. This ominous place has a high-level dark magic barrier cast all over it. To his shock, What he is witnessing before his eyes is the rift of Gehenna. Gehenna is actually the domain of the demons and fiends, and it is all kinds of scary. It's the one place connecting to the human realm, which leads to an interesting idea. Chris could actually force Karazo to this place using his perfect aphrodisiac serving as the bait. Convinced of this method, he thinks he's got what it takes to fulfill the hunt. But as he's turning around to leave, the bloodsucker pops out of the blue, impressed and intrigued by the young master's actions so far. He was there to witness Chris's fight against Arlos and his impressive manipulation against his servants. Now the child was about to unfold an elaborate scheme too. It excited the Grand Steward to play with him. Thinking of a plan, Simon reaches out to grasp the rift of Gehenna, which ends up leaking blood as a consequence. The rift calls out for his name, dubbing him as the betrayer in a shocking plot twist. Simon makes his move. The day of the hunt is here at last, with Arlos representing the flag of his family. Chris talks some shit in his face for acting high and mighty despite getting his butt whooped. Arlos claps back by mocking him for bringing the unusable holy sword. But Chris thinks he should test the weapon's integrity by beating him with it. Their banter comes to a close when the third prince orders his team to lure Karazo to the altar. He wants the guards and the mages to follow him. While this is happening, Chris is wary of the secret bat eyeing them down. He's happy to assist the bratty prince and goes on to wait for the others at the altar. The mage is annoyed by him and asks him to sit around if he's going to act like a nuisance. Chris happily takes up on that offer and freely goes away, causing the mage to get enraged. Arlos controls him and emphasizes that they should focus on the hunt. Chris is told to guard the flag like the scoundrel he is, which is the easiest task in the world for now. As he's enjoying himself, he knows things are going his way. Also, he ended up acquiring the dagger and orb from Grantel just as planned. Chris observes Arlos and the mage busy with observation. He senses Karazo's presence as the beady-eyed beast arrives at last. From one look, you'd probably think this dumb animal is the cutest creature ever. Arlos is prepared and releases the magic ritual to bind the creature. But despite his tampering, Karazo only gets enraged instead of enticed under his command. The third prince didn't anticipate this outcome and gets bitch-slapped into the ground. The mage rushes to check on his master. To make matters worse, he's been inflicted with poison, causing the mages to erect a defensive barrier immediately. But watching this battle from afar, Chris believes nothing will go their way, especially since he's already caused the beast to go wild using the aphrodisiac. Thankfully, Arlos had the antidote on him, but even he knows they're going to face some serious trouble if this is what they're up against. The guards jump in to drive the creature back, but let's be real. They're not going to do anything against a giant enraged bird who tackles them away with its sheer size. Arlos is about to get slammed into the ground and braces for impact, when suddenly, Chris comes for his support, defending against the attack while at the same time savagely grilling Arlos to the ground. Bro tells him that he's pathetic and that he's willing to help as long as the third prince refers to him as a brother. Arlos is resistant until Chris amuses the possibility of letting this wild creature go on unleashing its fury against the prince. The bodyguards are already down, and the barriers aren't working. Arlos, despite his ego, begs the scoundrel to help him. Pleased to hear those words, Chris happily swipes away the creature with the swing of his weapon. He then uses a binding spell, shocking Arlos greatly with his sudden usage of the technique. However, in reality, he was just using a mockery of the original technique. It was nothing more than a mid-level technique. The beast Karazo resists, but luckily Chris controls it exceptionally well. Arlos realizes what's going on. Chris fooled him and took control of the beast for his personal goal. He leads Karazo all the way up to the secret cave of Gehenna. The place instills the fear of death inside the creature, until it reaches the golden state he was waiting for. Capitalizing on this opportune moment, Chris plunges his blade into the creature's body. By the time Arlos and his men arrive there, it's already done. The third prince is worried for their safety and emphasizes that they should leave as soon as possible. But Chris has no plans of doing so, and shows them the ashened orb he acquired from the beast. Clearly this wasn't what they were expecting. The mage roars at him for intervening, while Arlos actually does a 180 and thanks our boy for saving the lives of his men. After all, it's only because of him that they avoided a darker fate. It almost makes Chris feel bad, especially since he secretly ruined the hunt for him by swapping the orb with a fake. Still, Chris isn't about to fold, and reminds Arlos that he's got to refer to him as a senior brother from now on. It's a teasing remark to someone who is years older than you already. In the middle of their banter, both of them experience a sudden and overwhelming pressure emanating from nearby. Two terrifying eyes stare down at them from the dark. Chris knows that they're in deep trouble the minute he lays his eyes on a demon of Gehenna. This giant monstrosity greets them with a scary face, and jumping to his protection, Arlos tells our boy to run away while he still can. I'm starting to like him a lot more now. That's a nice change. Taking note of the damn bat spying on them, Chris launches his blade aimed right at the bat, forcing a disruption to Simon's signal. He can't believe that the child noticed his connection, And now that his bat has been destroyed, he can't do anything in case things go wrong, not even after using his bloodline arts. Simon realizes he should hurry immediately, or else they will all die. Back to the cave, Chris expresses that he despises being secretly spied on. The demon laughs, believing that it's a death wish for the boy. Recalling his battles during the Age of Ruin, Chris knows for a fact that this guy is at least at the 5-star level. This means he can't face ugly Sukuna over here, but he can do one thing. Arlos shouts at him for wasting his magic power, and since Chris's sleeping spell didn't work on him just now, Bro deploys the old-school method of punching the daylights out of him. With the prince unconscious, the demon amuses the possibility of a sacrifice being offered. The funny thing is, he's even ready to spare Chris for the tribute. Our boy tells him he yaps way too much and whips out the holy sword grenade. The demon is impressed, but he thinks it's pointless to take out a weapon that not even Chris himself can't use. He unleashes his first attack, causing Chris to block it. But even as competent as he is, he gets overwhelmed by the attack to the point he's coughing blood. Things are looking really bad, and the considerate demon offers the boy a second chance to sacrifice his companions. But nah, this guy is a born savage and plans to keep it that way as he spits in the demon's face. It's the closest fuck you without using any words. Chris frees himself and deploys the usage of the ebony he obtained, coating his blade in golden light. The demon of Gehenna is shocked that he's able to control the light despite being a creature of the dark. Chris is happy that he's got the demon shivering already. The demon forces a powerful attack to annihilate Chris from where he stands. In response, our boy unleashes a powerful swing of his blade, cutting right past the sphere of dark and severing the demon's body. But even after expending this much power, Chris understands that his body is not yet ready to control it yet. He faints shortly afterward, recalling the move he used in his previous life. The Dead Sea Flash, the move he used just now, is an ability inspired by the singular ray of light that rests above the Dead Sea. And despite using such a technique, his friend wasn't worthy of House Meyer. But he strongly believed in Chris's potential, believing that he would become the light to save their world. Now that's the definition of a true homie's confidence in you. Observing the boy's performance, Mafina, a higher being of the dark and the first seat of the 7 circles of Gehenna, intriguingly watches over him. Back at the estate, our boy finally wakes up after being unconscious for 2 days straight. His body feels cranky but okay. Luckily, the darkness he obtained is with him. He recalls hearing Mafina's voice right before he fainted, realizing he's getting himself into more trouble than he thought. In this world, the demons who were promising with their talents were often noticed by the high-ranking devils, who nurtured their growth with their blessings. But that's just a crappy way for the losers who simply cannot grow on their own, or at least that's what our protagonist believes. Also, he thinks Mafina can't be that high up if she's from the 7th Circles party. In any case, Count Tyraman, who looks like a Chad unlike his son, mind you, personally comes to greet the boy. Chris gets up to greet the Lord properly, but he's told to rest. He tells him about the investigation team that was sent the other day. Their investigations revealed the tampering of some outside mage, but lucky for them, the demon was called back at the end. Still, they were lucky they weren't wiped out at that moment. Interestingly, Chris notes that they have yet to find out that he was the one who took down the demon, which is fair, since no one would ever believe that. Tyraman admits that he owes the child an apology, mistreating him as a scoundrel upon his first visit. Secondly, he owes the kid a thank you and declares him a benefactor to their house. Chris plays it off coolly, acting as if he was acting right out of duty and for the sake of the greater good. Though he's gaslighting him, he personally feels bad. Tyraman is moved by his words and even offers to carry out the boy's favors if he needs something. Refusing to let this chance go, the boy requests Lord Tyraman to reconcile with House Khazar. It's quite the shocking request, but it's better for the two houses to cooperate with each other instead of opposing them. He wants to be rivals with the prince and assures a healthy competition to come, a relationship with many promising aspects. Lord Tyraman reflects for a moment, but Chris continues to hammer down his persuasion, recalling how their families only got into bad terms because of the main house scheming them against each other. Also, if the branch families ended up uniting, it would pose a clear threat to the main family, which is why this is their method of exercising control. Lord Tyraman wonders if the boy is requesting a rebellion against the main family, which would be dangerous coming from a kid. Chris quickly denies that, and explains that they should simply behave more than just pawns on the board. Lord Tyraman likes the boy for his deep analysis, while Chris wonders if he'd be willing to fulfill his request. Giving in, the man promises to contact Count Khazar for a chance of reconciliation. Things are going just as planned. Chris hopes to acquire more allies and eventually contest the Age of Ruin with a strong alliance. Lord Tyraman also smacks his son for staying all quiet in this pivotal moment. Arlos actually hands him the ashen shard for his deeds. He remembers being unconscious, and held onto the shard for Chris when he woke up. Chris teases him for being grateful, and takes advantage of Arlos's ego. The scene causes his father to let out a laugh, presenting a gift from his side as well. It's a summoning stone that can be used to beast up to the tier 4 level. It's no joke, Chris even mentions it as a super rare item. Tyraman also intends to make a report to the Dark Ceremony to vouch for the boy's participation. Things are going swimmingly well for the protagonist, who got everything he wanted. Both the father and son leave his room so he can rest. Finally, Chris turns his attention to the one spying on him and asks him to come out. The bloodsucker, Simon, happily makes his presence known, shocked that the boy noticed him, even when Lord Tyraman could not. The chief steward of the Dark Mage clan has been meaning to exchange pleasantries with him. He's one of Lord Noga's top men. Chris suddenly remembers that this bastard is the master of the Blood Shadow Corps. Let's talk about the Blood Shadow Corps for a moment. It's a maddened group of individuals who commit slaughter and terrorism without caring for consequences. These guys don't care if their enemies are the Empire or the Light faction. And their leader? He's an 8-star level demon who cracked into the 9-star level by the Age of Ruin event, becoming the 10th Demon King with his might. This same dude is the reason for their close encounters with death. As for Simon, he just so happens to be the legitimate blood son of the Demon King. Simon is impressed by the young master's performance so far, and even reveals his knowledge of Chris wiping out a demon on his own. The revelation is shocking, because he clearly killed the surveillance bat, and even then this dude ended up knowing about what went down. Chris tries to feign ignorance, but the sharp steward isn't ready to let him fuck around. He remembers visiting the cave where not even a single trace of the demon was left. This meant that reverse summoning hadn't been used, and it was Chris who dealt the final blow. Now, the only question left is how. How was he able to wipe the demon from existence? Also, the steward makes it very clear he'll report this conversation to his master. Biting back, Chris expresses that he isn't planning on exposing his trump card. Despite Simon's insistence, he reminds the bloodsucker that he wasn't going to let his secrets out just because of the Elder Clan head. Observing this side of him, Simon assesses that this boy is like a beast who likes to hide his claws until the end. He finds him even more amusing now. Even more, Chris catches him with his words. You see, there's just no way to tell the difference between erasure and reverse summoning, which is why Tyraman couldn't tell either. But Simon, for some reason, was so adamant in his certainty and use of full erasure. Chris wonders why. Chris finally drops the bombshell against the aggressor, revealing that it was Simon who summoned the demon in the first place, and he amused the possibility of reporting the truth of the incident to Lord Noga. After all, the incident did put multiple noble families to be placed in harm. Realizing he's cornered, Simon assumes full responsibility, but Chris is fine with not reporting the truth, because he's playing the long game of keeping the chief steward in debt. The bloodsucker sharply notes that he's making a deal, and gleefully admits that he's done an act of mercy. He vanishes, hoping to meet him again. Though he left, Chris understands that this guy is one of the main variables for the Age of Ruin event. That means he's got to have a good relationship with him, so that he bears the capacity to alter the dark future to come. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really loving the main character's actions to fulfill his future plans. Every action is intentional. Marie is finished with their preparations to head back to the main estate. He's surprised to see Alois greeting them to ask if they were about to leave. Policing his title, Chris reminds him to use the word he gave him, despite being 2 years younger than the third prince. Anyway, Alois actually came here with a warning. He remembers Chris dubbing them as family, so he thinks it's only right to share this information. Alois tells him to be wary of Lowen's schemes, as he was the main opposing force against his participation in the ceremony, especially since Chris is just a 2-star mage. Then there's the fact that the main family possesses the best elixirs and the strongest techniques, as well as the blessings from demons. In short, Chris is going to be destroyed at their hands if he's not careful. But the confident genius offers a warning to Alois instead, insisting that he does not participate in the upcoming ceremony for his own good. This puts Alois in a state of rage, because he realizes this scoundrel wants to hoard the dark magic for himself. Also, Chris declares that he's going to crush his opponent, no matter who stands before him in the dark ceremony. And that's about it for their discussion as he tells Marie to move, once again repeating his warning to Alois. Having reached the house of Count Khazar, Thurn is shocked that his brother left for his training shortly after his return. Apparently he wants to be left alone until the dark ceremony ritual. Thurn ends up chasing after his brother, funnily still addressing him by that long-ass title. He wants to duel him to uphold the promise, while Chris is rather impressed by his brother's steady growth to reach the mid-2-star level. Though he wants to decline in favor of his training, Chris remembers that his brother was also going to participate in the Dark Rite ceremony. He recommends postponing the duel until the end of his training session, and promises Thurn that he won't delay it any longer. Agreeing to the compromise, the kid brother leaves him with an impression of stubbornness. It reminds Chris of a certain person he knew in his past life. Sitting alone in his room, he understands that he's got an entire month before the event of the ritual, so he bites down on the ebony orb, cringing at the bitter taste as he crashes on his bed. Its dark energy is even more chaotic than he imagined, but to his amazement, he also senses a glimmer of light energy from within the orb. He wonders if the Karazo beast's emotions made an impression on the orb, and also realizes why the demons have a hard time absorbing the ebony orb. Still, that didn't matter to him, as long as he could become one with the light force. Normally, demons wasted this kind of energy, but he wasn't planning on letting an important resource go to waste. At last, he absorbs all of it into his light core, the power changing him to his very senses. Chris closes his eyes shut, implying the completion of the process. The scene cuts away Lady Idaline, who is handed a report of the Ebony Hunt's investigation by her servant. She's been keeping an eye on Chris, who apparently survived an encounter with a demon during the hunting event. Half a month later, since Christian got back from the Tiramin debacle, Thurn stormed his big brother's room for their promised duel day. As soon as Lil Bro entered, he noticed a significant change in his brother's aura. Christian was quite amused that young Thurn came first thing in the morning for a quick pummeling. Lil Bro was speechless. Christian's dominating presence is leagues beyond what it was just half a month ago. His word is his bond since Thurn is so desperate for a beating. That wish shall be Christian's command. But they'll only duel if Thurn agrees to give up on the upcoming scared Dark Rite upon losing. The Rite is a brutal competition. Weaklings should just stay out of it. Incensed at being called a weakling, Thurn drew his blade. Since Lil Bro is blind to brotherly concern, Christian will just pound the lesson into him until he learns. Thurn charged forth with full confidence, only to get beaten so badly that he ended up bedridden. According to the healers, he will need bed rest for half a month, effectively ruling out this year's rite. Christian asked his dad for some alone time with Thurn, and the Count gave them the room for some brotherly talk. Right now, Thurn is pouting like an Alliance baby dummy when he's the one so desperate for a fight. He asked why a big brother would hate seeing their little brother grow. From his perspective, Christian constantly mocks and looks down on his achievements. Now he crossed the line and deliberately injured Thurn bad enough to rule him out of the sacred Dark Rite. Christian could see that his little bro was about to cry at this rate, so he clarified that they were not on the same page here. He's only being harsh to Thurn in hopes of accelerating his growth. This year, competing against him in the Rite would be a foolish move. He will just lose his chance to obtain pure dark energy forever. Christian had to be rough and decisive because of how stubborn the kid can be. But most importantly, pure dark energy doesn't even suit Thurn. He's a better fit for gray dark energy instead. Just like the power of light divides into various types, the power of dark comes in different variants too. Naturally, pure dark energy is widely considered to be the highest attribute and form. Right below is the gray dark energy, a type especially suited for cultivating curse magic. Thurn should have progressed enough to notice that he finds it easier to advance in curse magic than swordsmanship. Since Christian can't tell the kid that he saw him become a prolific curse magician in the future, Big Bro had to come up with a decent excuse. He alleged that he could tell his brother's affinity through their spars because he was fighting all out as well. In any case, taking in pure dark energy before mastering gray dark would just prove detrimental in the long run. Of course, absorbing a higher attribute has its perks, but in Thurn's case, he'll just be impeded by its unique properties, effectively slowing down his progress to a crawl, so passing on this year's rite is the right move. This is Christian's sincere advice as an older brother, rooting for his little bro's success. Thurn felt that in his heart. Taking out something from his pocket, Christian gave Lil Bro the ash pill as a gift. Ash pills are extremely valuable, but Christian was just scammed by a scammer, so it's all good. Besides, he had already eaten something much better than just an ash pill. Thurn was moved by his brother's words and actions. He was wrong to think that Christian was just being an asshole. Still, if he was capable of changing for the better, why did he behave like such an imbecile even while their mother was on her deathbed? She had to suffer through so much heartache. Even though Chris wasn't in control of this body at that time, he felt guilty. He was simply a different person who didn't understand back then. A few days later, the cathedral of the De Baron family was filled with raucous, luxurious carriages. Coming out of one of them is our boy, Christian Van Baron Khazar. It was a long journey, and he needed a good stretch. He knows the main family didn't even bother opening up a warp gate for him out of spite and pettiness. When he becomes the clan head, these old shits will pay. Since they've arrived at their destination, Marie can freely go out now. She can already imagine having a date with just the two of them, hearts fluttering, even though banshees don't have hearts. Because the main family is limited to bringing only one companion, Christian has to bring Marie since they are attached to one another by a pact. As soon as he stepped out of the carriage, he became the silent topic of everyone around. Marie praised his renown, but it felt more like an insult. Every Dark Rite candidate was taken aback when the goof-for-nothing bastard of Khazar was personally welcomed by the head butler of the family. Simon eyed him from head to toe and was pleasantly surprised at his noteworthy growth in such a short amount of time. The vampiric servant announced that he came down here under the orders of the Elder Clan head himself. His old master would like to personally meet the fiend he's been hearing about so much these days. Simon could tell that Christian was not even surprised that he was being called up. And so, his first stop is the private study of the Elder Clan head. Standing beside the old man was Aunt Marion. The power and influence of these two cannot be understated. As soon as the old man's eyes peered into him, Christian felt a numbing suffocation. He could barely stand the pressure. He felt like an ant being crushed under the fingers of a domineering deity. The Elder Clan head is deliberately exuding excess amounts of dark energy despite knowing that a noob like Christian shouldn't be able to withstand it. But our boy here is no ordinary noob. He might tremble, but he won't fall. Gritting his teeth through the pressure, he extended a formal greeting to Duke Baron, great sovereign of the Dark Magic Clan. When asked if he was surprised by the sudden invitation, Christian honestly answered that he expected the call. He knows that the higher-ups won't be able to ignore a new rising star on the come-up. The Elder Clan head liked his answer. Neither Marion nor Simon couldn't hold back singing the young man's praises. But the old head himself isn't quite convinced just yet. In his old-ass age, he believes that only time will tell whether a great seed will wither or grow. Who knows? Christian could just be a sapling that wanes as soon as he sprouts above ground. He did not refute the old man's take on managing expectations for the new generation. But he added that he could become a sapling that surpasses every prospect, growing into a great tree. Perhaps he's an abnormality that can even overshadow the greatest of trees. At the very least, he guarantees that the old man won't be disappointed. After a brief pause, the Elder Clan head smiled and placed his hopes upon Christian. Upon dismissal, he gave a respectful bow. As soon as he's out of the room, Aunt Maria asks the old man what he thinks about the young man. The Elder Clan head admitted that the kid surpassed his initial expectations. But he also fears that such great talent is fated for a more turbulent path, especially now that bloody winds are blowing towards the magic empire. Still, a small hope sprouted in this room today, and that's one of the rare things that gets the old man's blood pumping. That Khazar child might indeed be able to fulfill the old man's long-desired wish. Night came, and the banquet for the sacred Dark Rites Eve commenced. Servants announced the arrival of Count Khazar's eldest son, and Christian Van Baron Khazar, dripping out of his gorge, came walking in like royalty. The hot topic of today's whispers is the fool's meeting with the Elder Clan head earlier in the day. Some people suspect that he might be some kind of boy toy. Instead of being offended, he took these nasty rumors as a compliment to his looks. It doesn't help that Marie is always there to feed his delusions. The first thing Christian spotted was the servers handing out drinks. Finally, he can have some real booze and none of that non-alcoholic back home. Unfortunately, the servers are quite strict in forbidding underage drinking, even though most of these kids have probably killed people before. Instead of alcohol, he has to settle for more ginger ale. What's the point of living with friends if they're all killjoys and sticklers for rules? Christian is in misery. Everyone's attention was snatched by the arrival of the next batch of guests, the young lords and ladies of the clan. As soon as the gates opened, an air of nobility graced the room. 4 people dressed in ornate fabrics made the entire banquet hall stop and stare in awe. Leading the pack is Eshid de Baron, the second young lord. Following is Julianne de Baron, the first young lady. Next is Jupian de Baron, the second young lady. Lastly, there is the third young lord, Mysak de Baron. Some hidden forces were quite disappointed that the first young lord, the madman, was absent. Christian is focused on what Eshid will say to him, the victim of his little game and the one who sullied his reputation in court. Eshid said the worst thing he could possibly say was nothing. He just walked past Christian as if he had not even registered in his field of vision. The bastard didn't even breathe in his direction. That just proves that one of the leading succession candidates sees him as someone no better than a bug. When first young lady Julianne walked past Christian, he found his stare lingering for a long time. Aunt Marion once cryptically warned him about this woman, but he didn't sense anything particularly out of the ordinary with her. He'll just figure out her deal later. He's done enough recon on the competition for today. Just as he was about to walk back to his accommodation to prepare for the long day tomorrow, a butler approached him. He introduced himself as Four, a summoner working for young Master Loin. Hearing that name soured Christian's expression. When he asked what's up, the butler had the nerve to imply that someone unworthy of participating in tomorrow's sacred dark rite snuck in. He allegedly worries that an underqualified participant might cause an unnecessary accident for others, sullying the name of the great dark clan. It's obvious that this old far is implying that Christian is underqualified trash. When confronted, Four did not even deny it. Standing behind him on a balcony was his young master, a curly-headed imbecile trying to elicit a reaction. Christian disapproves of this bullying method. He believes that assholes should at least step up and do the dirty work themselves. Nevertheless, he'll just give the kid a heart-to-heart tomorrow during the rite. For now, he'll go out of his way to have some fun with this daring summoner. Without drawing a weapon, he taunted Four to show his party tricks he calls summoning. He doesn't even need to use a stick to face some dumbass like this guy. As tensions rose, people around the banquet hall started paying attention. The commotion even made the first young lady smile in a strange way for some reason. Just a few seconds later, the guests were flabbergasted by the incredulous display in front of them. Four is on his knees, desperately trying to protect himself from evil spirits ganging up on him. Meanwhile, Christian is using one of the spirits as a chair and 2 more as his willing servants. Everyone was dumbfounded. They've never seen anything like it before. The summoner, Four, initiated combat by summoning his evil spirits without warning. Instead of tearing the target apart, they turned on their summoner with Christian's single gesture. He gained control so fast that it looked like he used a cheat code. He even sensed young Master Loin's will trying to interfere, but it wasn't that big of a deal. The curly-headed bastard looked like he was about to explode from embarrassment. It's simply unbecoming of a direct heir to the clan. This bum should have just challenged him directly so they could air out their grievances quickly. Shameless as always, Loin asserted that the attack had nothing to do with him. Not even a fool would believe that lie when his servant is beaten on the floor, looking to be saved by his young master. Tired of this charade, Christian packed it up and made his exit. He'll just see these bums during the sacred dark rite. He'll make sure to teach that cowardly brat some proper manners tomorrow. And so, the day of the sacred dark rite has arrived. The candidates have gathered, and everyone is anxious. Well, everyone except Chris. He looks like he was forced to attend this thing, and it ruined his sleep. Among the candidates was Alois Tiramin. He already warned this guy not to attend, but he's quite headstrong. You can't blame him, though. It is an honor to attend the sacred dark rite. It's hard to pass up such an opportunity. Finally, the last candidate arrived. That curly-headed imbecile Loin made his entrance while trying to oar a farm. Christian is itching to put the kid in his place. Now that everyone had assembled, a little guy named Sebastian, the vice butler in charge of the main house, greeted everyone. He will be today's guide to the sacred ground where the rite will take place. Upon poking the floor with the butt of his staff, space crumbled, and an endlessly descending staircase appeared, heading down a dark void. No one expected the testing to be underground. In truth, this is simply an illusory art that materializes imaginary space. Christian was the only one who noticed. Sebastian wordlessly descended the stairs as if he were taking a casual stroll. The participants immediately followed suit, afraid that they might get left behind. After a seemingly endless descent, they found themselves in an illusory hall of recursion. Sebastian is still at the front, walking at a brisk pace. The participants following him are giving it their all, but most of them are quickly approaching the limit of their stamina. The underground terrain was bizarre. They had to scale steep slopes and walk through winding paths. Even Loin, widely believed to be the frontrunner, is struggling. To make things worse, Sebastian, the hunter examiner, looks like he can keep going at this forever. Upping the stakes, he informed the participants that the ground would not support those who lag behind. Immediately, 2 of the participants at the last fell to nothingness as the ground collapsed. The other exhausted and fearful representatives of their families didn't have the time to think about what just happened as Sebastian kicked the speed up to another notch. Instead of a brisk jog, he went on a full-on sprint with his little legs. Moments later, the number of people that can still keep up continued to diminish. Loan looked behind him and scoffed at the unworthy pests who couldn't hang with the big boys. He was then jump-scared at the sight of the handsome devil, Christian Khazar, locked in on the track. The monster is not even sweating when all of his peers are running on will alone at this point. Now that they're at the home stretch, he decided to mess with Lone a little bit, taunting him for being an all-bark, no-bite dog panting for breath. As a direct heir, Lone should be performing at a higher level than he is doing right now. They fed him with a bunch of resources from a young age after all. In Christian's eyes, every single one of these kids is a fool who's making their bodies needlessly suffer for not using their brains. Earnestly running inside an illusory space is the stupidest thing you can do. While everyone's doing deadly cardio, Chris's stamina is not even slightly depleted. All he did was twist one spell, and he's practically invincible in this place. Sebastian took note of the only participant who saw through the crux of this culling process. It seems like some higher-ups have already clued him in about the young master of the Khazar family. Finally, the 4 remaining survivors reached the end of the track. 3 of them gasp for air while Chris chills like a villain. Alois can't fathom how one can be unscathed after that hellish march. To mess with him, Chris advised Alois to simply train his body more. Suddenly, a dancing light and an unsettling voice demanded everyone's attention. The voice expounded that this scary ground contains the purest of dark energy. Thus, it's aptly called the sacred darkness. The light took the form of an unsettling woman that some of you would call Mommy in a heartbeat. She is Ryu, manager of the sacred ground. Today, the young masters and mistresses will be attempting to obtain the great pure darkness, just like the 3rd-ranked Demon King, the Dark Destroyer, progenitor of the Dark Magic clan, once did. Raising her hand, Ryu drew winding lines of light on the floor. Since there is not enough darkness for a four-way share, their worthiness will be tested by the demon beasts waiting in each separate pathway. Simply put, they must traverse a random path, and whoever arrives first can claim the ultimate prize. If that's the case, unforeseen mishaps could occur between competitors during the rite. Ryu explained that conflicts are not grounds for disqualification. Since everyone will be taking a different path, chances of a clash are slim to none. But on the off chance that a fight does arise, a full-on brawl is discouraged, for the more time they waste bickering, the better it will serve the other competitors. Ryu's final advice for success is to focus on one's own safety. After a count of 5, she wished them good fortune and signaled the start of the race. Sebastian turned to his coworker to try betting some blood juice on who'd win, but Ryu wasn't interested. She's already gone. The seemingly unshakable vice butler was incensed. In one of the pathways, Lone Van Baron eventually encountered his first beast horde. It was a pack of flame-spitting, four-eyed wolves. They howled and lunged at the curly-headed freak. Coating his hand with dark energy, he faced the pack head-on. In just a few seconds, he unleashed a chain of moves that targeted each wolf's fatal spot, killing each one in a single hit. He correctly gauged that these pups are low-ranking 2-star magic creatures at best. They're practically cannon fodder against an upper 2-star fiend like Loin. Currently, he's more interested in imagining Christian having a hard time on the path he took. According to the rules, each path is supposed to have the same distance and trials laid out for fairness' sake. However, the curly-headed freak bribed a mage to fill Christian's path with some stronger demon beasts. The bastard of Khazar will surely come across some deadly foes, and his tragic fate will look like an accident. Since any death that occurs during the sacred dark rite is ruled out as an unavoidable casualty, Loin's plan should be ironclad. A few minutes later, Lone arrived at the door of the sacred ground. Seeing that no one was around, he celebrated his win. He failed to notice someone else standing near the door. Christian had been lounging in this spot for a while now. He's been waiting for Loin's slow ass to arrive to the point of boredom. Knowing that his plan should have worked, Lone was confused. He accidentally blurted out that Christian's path should have been crawling with much stronger monsters. Loin really is just a stupid kid who can't even keep his plot a secret. Christian suspected some sort of tampering at the level of difficulty in his trial, so it's nice to hear some confirmation from the culprit. Loin tried to act all high and mighty like he always did as a main family member, but that shit won't work here. He cried that clashing with competitors during the rite is taboo while charging his fists with dark energy. Trying to play dirty, he lunged forward, trying to knock Christian out with a haymaker. Christian leaned backward, making the punch go wide. Keeping his eyes open, he studied the prick's magic combat art. He assessed that it's a combat technique that explodes potent magic power at extremely close range. It can also be used to snap an opponent's joints. Following the first missed attack, Lone started throwing random punches at breakneck speeds. He is pushing his attack rate to the limits, but Christian is an expert at acting like a slippery rat. Finally, the bastard of Khazar seemingly dropped his guard, and an opening presented itself. Being the amateur that he is, Loin bit. As he closed in, Christian took delight in talking trash. Loin was easily baited by a false opening, leading to a quick arm grab. Quickly shifting the arrogant young master's momentum against himself, Christian applied increasing pressure on the arm. With a smile, he warned Loin to suppress his cry as best as he could, for the next few minutes were about to be hellish agony. The pressure on the arm lock steadily increased until the sound of joints snapping echoed. In front of the dark, sacred ground, a guttural scream of agony bellowed. A few hours later, the last of the final 4 arrived panting, exhausted from the waves upon waves of monsters he had to clear. It was none other than Alois. Much to his surprise, he found Christian casually waving at him at the finish line. Lying unconscious on his feet were the other survivors. Christian was quite annoyed that Alois was so ass that he had to wait for so long. Since they are acquainted with one another, he gives the kid a choice to faint on his own, or if he needs a little help. Quickly realizing what was happening, Alois gathered dark energy in his palms, ready to defend himself. Since they last met, he hasn't been sitting on his ass and doing nothing. He improved too. Unfortunately for him, no amount of training could bridge the gap between a god and an ant. Leaving his victims here for the elders to find should be fine. 5 years from now, the first great war against the Alliance will inevitably break out. By that time, Christian needs to have the Dark Magic clan within his grasp. To do that, he must be greedy. He cannot share even an ounce of sacred darkness with anyone. Now that the competition has been taken care of, it's time to claim the prize. It is time to take possession of the fabled sacred darkness. The power that grants a fiend the possibility of becoming a true transcendent is right behind this door. Back in his youth, the elder clan head was known as a genius who absorbed 80% of the sacred darkness. He went on to become one of the strongest life forms even in the age of demon monarchs. On the other hand, the Dark Destroyer, the progenitor of the clan, absorbed more than 90% of pure dark energy, and became the Demon King. Logic dictates that absorbing 100% of this stuff should push Christian above those legends. If he can tame this globe of pure darkness, he will have the potential to exceed even the Demon Emperor. As soon as his palm touched the globe, a surge of darkness filled his veins and arteries. While he's inside the sacred ground, the higher-ups of the clan are in shambles. They just found out that every single prospect has been eliminated, aside from the Khazar bastard. Even young Master Loin is beaten within an inch of his life. It's a disaster. Of course, the old bats immediately jumped to the conclusion that Christian must have used a trick or a banned magic tool and demanded a thorough investigation. Before things got out of hand, the second young lady, Christian Van Baron, spoke up. She believes that the cheating bastard won't be able to enter the sacred ground anyway. Given that he hasn't got out for 2 whole days, it must mean that he's already dead. They refuse to believe that the guy could absorb an exorbitant quantity of sacred darkness non-stop. Even the elder clan head ran into an upper limit back in his days. They can't see a world where Christian could do better. Once the sacred ground is done with him, there won't even be a corpse left. In truth, Jupian is seething in anger right now. On the off chance that Christian is still alive, she intends to kill him herself. You see, when her father died during his battle against the Alliance, Luan and Jupian were adopted by their uncle, Viscount Langham. The siblings' footing within the clan is already shaky. Now that Lone failed to receive sacred darkness, it is bound to become shakier. No one will support her little brother as a serious succession candidate anymore. Jupian will make sure that the bastard of Khazar pays for this indignity. She crazy. Even the clan servants are talking about the good-for-nothing stuck inside the sacred grounds. The consensus is that he's already dead, punished for being greedy and not knowing his place. His maid, the Banshee, has been waiting for her master without rest. The servants joke that the ghost of the master was bound to meet the ghostly maid soon. Annoyed by their rude chatter, Marie nearly beheaded one of the servants. While her heart is restless as she waits for the young master, she won't tolerate nosy bitches disparaging his name. If she hears any more of that bullshit, Marie threatens to turn them into ghost puppets. In truth, Marie just wants to see her master's face again. A man who makes a maiden wait is not cool at all. Speaking of the man subject to speculation in the outside world, Christian is currently floating in an unending void of darkness that chokes the breath from his throat. He just reached the 70% mark of absorption. The process turned out to be a lot harder than he expected, but he's determined to endure it no matter what. He's still far from 90%, the point where the real test begins. Even though he's eager, he can't take in too much power and exceed his limit, which will shatter his core. He can't die in this place without changing the course of history. He is the MC. Come to think of it, there is one thing that can help him immensely: a dragon heart. Dragons have the largest natural container of power. In his first life, he learned how to imitate the intricacies of a dragon's heart for just a few minutes. As he begins changing the structure of his heart into a mythical being's, the rate of darkness absorption dramatically increases. After a few minutes of relentless suction, he started approaching his absolute limit. It was then that a familiar voice offered some assistance. Manifesting in front of him was the first seat of Gehenna's 7th realm, the enigmatically gorgeous Mefina. Natural law suggests that a high-ranking demon should not be able to form a body in this space. But Mefina explained that the power of demons is tied to darkness. Forming a body made of pure dark poses no difficulty to her at all. It also gives her the unique power to help Christian in this instance without any conditions, no strings attached. In his crusade against demonic beings, Christian had never heard of such a transaction before. Mefina laughed at his uncertainty and insisted that she was just moving on a fleeting whim. There are no deeper intentions to her actions. All he has to do is take her hand and take in all of the sacred darkness. 1 week later, the elder clan head is having tea time outdoors with Simon, attending to his needs. Even the old man is waning on the possibility that the kid is still alive, given that there has been no news for an entire week. Aunt Marion could not make sense of why such a smart boy would fall for such reckless greed. Simon relayed that most of the higher-ups, especially Viscount Langham, agree that they should make a ruling soon. The Viscount wishes to close the pathway leading to the sacred ground soon. They're just waiting for the elder clan head's sign-off. Well, the old man doesn't like being pressured by wicked brats. Calling Simon a blood drinker like it's a slur, he asked his loyal servant about his opinion on the matter. Simon honestly set the reckless child's survival odds close to 0. Still, he can't seem to shake the feeling that Christian might surprise them. He is quite an interesting young master after all. With that assessment, the elder clan head came to the decision for a 1-day extension. Using his authority, Viscount Langham shall wait for 1 more day before closing the gates. Aunt Marion quietly sighed in relief. Within the next 24 hours, we'll see if our boy can break the first Demon King's record or not. Mefina urges Christian to grab her hand before everything slips away, but he turns her down without hesitation. She finds him ridiculous while thinking he should already know that humans aren't allowed to carry more than a tiny fraction of this power. Yet Christian, with a determination in his eyes, reminds her she seems to be missing something important. They are standing in a world where concepts shape reality. She stares at him, unable to believe it, and wonders if this is demonization. It is, after all, the forbidden pinnacle of the mystic magic clan's arts, where a mortal becomes a demon for a brief moment to unleash terrifying strength, a technique as deadly for the user as it is powerful. Lena had once perished under the weight of it. Her life shattered the moment she cast that spell. But Christian considers another angle, that if he removes the parts of the spell that amplify dark energy, can't he shape this world into a vessel while capturing the power without paying the usual price? Step by step, it begins to work. Using this container, he pushes beyond 90%, pulling every thread of the sacred darkness into himself. Mefina's eyes widen, unable to accept what she sees. A black crescent forming. A mere human. No more than an insect in this vast world, leaving his fragile body behind. She can only wonder who he truly is beneath that human skin. Christian looks toward the demon and remarks while reminding it with quiet confidence that he is a genius. The demon might keep rotting here for eternity, but he plans to leave. As he steps away, Mefina calls out while promising they will meet again in another time, but Christian only finds her words annoying while echoing in the air like an unwelcome promise. The demon begins to laugh, a harsh while grating sound, and Christian thinks to himself that he must look insane if they expect him to come back to this place willingly. The demon's laughter is harsh in the emptiness, and Christian moves on while brushing off the sound. While leaving, he starts wondering how long he has been here. By his guess, it has been around a week, and the main family must be in chaos by now, unable to find him. A small smirk creeps onto his face as he thinks of something amusing while deciding that it's the perfect moment to pull a little prank. With that, he takes off his mask while stepping out of the realm. Soon he arrives before Lord Viscount Macfield at his side. They inform the young master that Christian has returned, and people around them react instantly, shocked that the brat has survived. Viscount Langham, the acting head of the Dark Magic clan, demands the details, his voice low but commanding. It is explained that Christian barely survived while clinging to life by a thin thread, now deeply exhausted. The healer, while sensing pure dark energy within him, reports that the energy is in chaos while swirling violently without order. Everyone quickly realizes it will be nearly impossible for Christian to control this dark energy properly in the future. They quietly acknowledge that there was no way someone like him could have absorbed more than 80% of the sacred darkness. All that precious sacred darkness now feels wasted because of what they see as his selfish hunger. Someone suggests he should be held responsible for this while addressing Lord Viscount directly. The Viscount takes note of it while dismissing the gathered voices with a flick of his hand and ends the meeting for the day while sending them away. Afterward, he turns to Macfield while questioning if the reports are accurate. Macfield confirms it while explaining he saw Christian beside the healer, and it was clear something was wrong with his core. The Viscount then adds that Loin, and Macfield agrees on it. In reality, Loin was meant to be the young lord, the sacrificial pawn, the key to their plan with the Poison Magic clan. Their grand plan to wipe out the Poison Magic clan alongside Jupian now has to be delayed, and the Viscount quietly notes how even their father has begun to show interest in Christian, while understanding that one small fish can disrupt the flow of an entire river. Finally, the Viscount instructs Macfield to bring Christian down to the Darkness Hall the next day. With that, he deadpans that he will announce Christian's upcoming disposal before all the vassals tomorrow. Next day, Christian is standing there in the palace, hands in his pockets while thinking how hard they're trying to toss him aside. He glances around at everyone gathered while noting how they've pulled in all these important faces, clearly ready to put on a show. The Lord Viscount brings up the topic while asking Christian if he even knows what wrongs he pulled during the sacred dark rite. Christian nods, not bothered at all, and the Viscount pushes him to spell it out. Christian shrugs while explaining that his peers can't live up to their Dark Magic clan bloodline, so honestly, he should have hit them even harder, but didn't get the chance. Someone in the room chimes in while asking if those peers can still walk. The Viscount waves them off while focusing back on Christian. He points out that Christian's real mess-up is using up the Dark Magic clan's precious resource without delivering the results they expected. Christian tilts his head while asking what kind of results they mean exactly. The Viscount says flatly they expected a purity of at least 70%. Christian raises a brow while wondering aloud what sort of punishment he's looking at if he didn't hit 70% or higher. The Viscount lays it out that Christian won't get any dark magic techniques. He'll be banned from the main house for good, and forget about inheriting the house of Count Khazar. Christian leans back while asking how exactly they're planning to judge his results while pointing out that even the clan head seems unsure how to measure it. Eshid, who's sitting nearby, raises his hand while calling Christian, "Dear younger brother." He offers a solution while saying that even if Christian's core is a mess, a dark energy clash can still test how pure his energy really is. Since Loan has absorbed 70% of the sacred darkness, if Christian can beat him, that should prove Christian has pulled off something bigger. Everyone knows this dark energy clash is a straightforward, brutal way to see whose dark energy is stronger. Same amount of dark energy? Christian with purer energy crushes the other instantly. When energy of similar ranks clashes, the higher purity always wins, and it can easily wreck the loser's core. Christian thinks Eshid is even sneakier than he gave him credit for, but agrees to the challenge. He tells them that if he proves himself here, the Lord clan had better back him up and let him take on the test of a young lord. Eshid agrees while saying it doesn't matter if someone's from the main family or a branch. Strength rules in the magic empire. People around them look shocked while whispering about what's happening. Eshid also mentions that if Christian doesn't have full control, this clash could damage his core. To match Christian's level, he says he'll only use beginner 2-star dark energy, although the purity difference will still be there. Soon, both of them are standing across from each other, ready to go. Christian cracks a small grin while telling Eshid he doesn't need to hold back, and maybe he should worry about protecting his own precious core. Eshid, a bit amused, thinks he's curious to see what Christian's dark energy is really like. Then the duel kicks off. Both of them start throwing out their dark energy skills while pushing and pulling power against each other. Eshid's eyes go wide when he realizes Christian is redirecting his attacks without even building up his own energy. Thinking fast, Eshid considers bumping up to expert 2-star dark energy, disappointed with what he's seen so far. Annoyed, Eshid challenges Christian about his earlier confidence while wondering if this is all he's got. A man near Eshid warns him that using 4-star dark energy could destroy Christian's core, but Christian keeps pressing with sharp control while throwing out his dark energy moves while Eshid tries to keep up. Christian casually warns Eshid again while telling him to be careful since losing control now could break his own core. Suddenly, blood starts dripping from Eshid's mouth as Christian strikes land, and Christian asks if that wasn't enough for him while thinking he meant to break Eshid's core completely. But out of nowhere, Eshid concedes while admitting that Christian's dark energy has hit at least 90% purity. The Lord Viscount can't hide his shock at hearing 90%, the words hanging in the air heavy. Christian, while standing there with calm confidence, points out that now he's got the right to be a young lord too, right? The Lord Viscount goes quiet while looking tense, already deep in thought. Viscount Langham mentions, just like he promised, that Christian gets the chance to take the test of the young lord. However, no branch family member has ever taken this test before. Acting as the current clan head, the Viscount mentions he will randomly pick a trial for him. Christian realizes in his mind that the Viscount plans to hand him a trial that would be impossible to clear. Furthermore, the Viscount notes that Christian's abilities will be judged at 2 separate stages. Initially, he needs to showcase his talent. Afterward, he must accomplish a feat worthy of a young lord. Christian quietly wonders about how to display this talent, and the condition is clear that he has to reach 3 stars within 3 months. Christian feels confident inside while thinking he is a genius, and reaching that goal might not be too tough for him. The Viscount then expresses anticipation to witness what Christian manages to accomplish within those 3 months. Later on, the Viscount spends time with Eshid while expressing his disappointment toward him. Eshid admits his mistake in underestimating Christian, which also affected his own standing. Both agree they need to handle Christian before he turns into a serious threat. Viscount Langham reassures Eshid while reminding him of the reason they avoid taking in more than 70% of pure dark energy. The Viscount explains that the purer the dark energy one absorbs, the harder it becomes to raise its rank, and it becomes exponentially challenging. Thus, even reaching a simple 3-star level would take much longer for them compared to others. Eshid then wonders what happens when someone absorbs 90% of that energy, and the Viscount calmly remarks that regardless of Christian's talent, he won't be able to surpass that barrier. Meanwhile, Christian sits down for a meal when Rania arrives while sharing that news of his recent performance has spread throughout the mansion. She feels her heart beating faster because of him, while expressing how charismatic she finds him. However, Christian feels embarrassed by her open words. Marie softly shares that during the time she waited for him, she came to understand her true feelings for him, while realizing how much she missed him, with each day feeling endless in his absence. At that moment, another lady steps in while checking if Christian has any injuries. Marie casually remarks that with Christian's agility, there's no chance he would be hurt, but the lady insists on checking him just in case while asking for his hand. She gently points out to Marie that it's all right to admit she worries about him. She wonders aloud if she is really the only one concerned while mentioning that only hero Evan seems worried. Meanwhile, Christian reflects quietly while realizing it has been a long time since he has felt this warmth. Ever since he fled that cruel clan that only wished for his death, his previous life has been nothing but endless bloodshed. Yet in that dark past, he met hearts filled with kindness. Now, he finally has enough strength to say the words he could never speak back then. In that moment, he softly expresses his gratitude to Marie. She appears puzzled at first, but he repeats his thanks for her patience and for waiting for him, truly. A wave of happiness washes over her, as she realizes he finally understands her true feelings while making her heart pound even faster. Christian teases that she doesn't have a heart, but she quickly chimes in while claiming that it's because he, the young Master Christian, has stolen it. He then mentions that since she waited for him, he should give her a reward while suggesting they take a walk together. She is caught off guard, feeling overwhelmed, and checks if he truly means it. He confirms calmly, and soon, as they step outside, he shares with her that he still needs to reach 3 stars in 3 months, while admitting it will be a tight challenge. Even with the guidance of the branch family tutors, it will be hard, and managing 90% pure dark energy alone is nearly impossible. Marie responds with a playful remark, while noting that he still seems eager to stir up trouble everywhere he goes. Suddenly, Christian's aunt arrives, and he greets her respectfully. She observes that perhaps it is not the best moment for him to wander in the garden so carefreely while questioning whether he has found a teacher to assist in his training. Christian lightly suggests that perhaps she could take that role, but she declines without hesitation. He jokingly notes that she has raised his hopes for no reason, but she instructs him to follow her. Before leaving, he apologizes to Marie while promising to meet her again at dinner, and she acknowledges his words. As he walks alongside his aunt, Christian admits he doesn't know who she plans to introduce as his teacher, but thanks her for considering him. She responds while explaining she doesn't think this is something to be grateful for, and stating he will understand once he experiences it himself. She warns him that the teacher is not gentle in his methods, and none of her siblings have managed to endure his lessons. However, she advises him to give it his best, as this is an opportunity he won't get again, and he should not let the teacher down. As they continue walking, they spot a young child nearby. Christian takes a glance and mentions to his aunt that the child seems to be lost. Christian asks the child about his parents while gently ruffling his hair, but right after, a sudden shock runs through him. His aunt quickly reminds him to show some manners and begin with a greeting first. Realizing it, Christian nods while recognizing that the boy standing before him is actually the clan head's incarnation. Then, he offers a respectful greeting to the clan head. As Christian observes closely, he senses that the child's power has reached around 90%. No, even beyond that. Christian acknowledges within himself that the boy has truly achieved something remarkable. The clan head humbly appreciates the praise, but mentions that it was still a reckless choice while asking if Christian understands this. Christian confirms while knowing well what he means. The clan head then explains that, having absorbed 80% of the sacred darkness, even he has faced barriers far steeper than what others usually meet. He mentions that even their progenitor wouldn't have reached his stage if it weren't for the Demon Emperor's grace. The clan head admits he can't even imagine the barriers Christian will face on his journey. Therefore, he offers that, if Christian wishes, he can return a portion of his pure dark energy back into the ether. With Christian's talent, he could manage around 80% of the dark energy, but anything more than that would only be considered greed. Taking a breath, Christian requests to speak honestly, and brings up a question that leaves his aunt in shock. He points out that while the Dark Magic Clan might not match the Mystic Magic Clan or the Undead Magic Clan, known as the Heaven Above the Heavens, they are still seen as the weakest among the 12 Nobel clans. The clan head, curious, wonders if Christian thinks there is a reason for this view. Christian reflects and shares that while the Dark Magic Clan has flourished more than in past generations, much of it thanks to the clan head's accomplishments, people still say the Dark Magic Clan has lost something they once had. Christian believes there can be only one reason that the clan lacks enough individuals who have reached the absolute stage above 8 stars of power. He quietly thinks about the future when the Demon King of Carnage will attack the Dark Magic Clan, and by then, Nordion will already be gone. The clan will have no 8-star warriors left, and only a few 7-star fiends will remain within the clan while leaving it vulnerable when that dark day comes. They, along with the clan's 10,000 soldiers, are set to clash with the Demon King of Carnage, but in the end, they will fall, forced to serve him as slaves. It shows how crucial absolute stage warriors of 8 stars and above truly are for the clan's survival. There's no way the Elder Clan head is not concerned about this future. The clan head acknowledges he understands well the fear of being crushed under the heavy weight of dark energy and losing the ability to advance further. Yet, he wonders if Christian feels curious. Christian, while holding on to his determination, reflects whether his power will only strengthen the Dark Magic Clan, or if he will overcome these trials and rise beyond while becoming a being of endless power. The clan head chuckles while praising Christian's bold words and hinting he hopes Christian won't regret them later. Christian feels a jolt of shock, and in the blink of an eye, he finds himself standing inside a dense forest. It is here he learns that the first step to inherit the pure dark energy is simply to survive. Suddenly, He senses danger creeping around him while forcing him to scan his surroundings with sharp focus. Meanwhile, in another place where the clan head and Christian's aunt are watching, she realizes that this harsh trial has come again. She gently reminds the clan head that tossing a 2-star child into a den of 4 magic monsters is a dangerous choice. The clan head teases back while questioning if facing just one monster would even be enough for this trial. On Christian's side, while he is undergoing his test, he notices something moving and wonders if it is a rock lizard. At the same time, his aunt feels a soft ache in her chest, while wishing she didn't have to watch him endure such a cruel trial. The clan head calmly explains that through the desperate fight for survival, Christian will face the true essence of pure dark energy, as understanding it comes quickest and deepest only when one is pushed to the edge of death. His aunt quietly hopes that Christian does not suffer too much during this harsh trial. Then, the clan head casually checks in with her while asking if she has prepared them. She brings out the sweets she made and hands them over. His face lights up with happiness while mentioning how he always craves sweets after using dark energy. Relaxing, he begins watching a movie while noting how watching something in the dark feels the best. Settling in, he prepares to observe his grandson's training unfold. Meanwhile, back in the forest, Christian faces off against the monsters while noticing that standing before him are not only a rock lizard, but also a twin-headed bear, while pushing him into the thick of the survival trial. Christian starts to feel annoyed while realizing that just taking a single hit here could shatter his bones. As he keeps moving, the rock lizard suddenly spits out a stream of poison. The sight of the venom surprises him while making him fully aware that even one slip-up in this place could easily end his life. Yet he reminds himself that in the end, this is still just a training assignment. There's no way the clan head would hand him a challenge like this without a way to solve it. The clan head acknowledges his unspoken question while letting him know there is no clear solution to the situation he is facing now. Christian processes this while questioning if the clan head wants him to find the answer himself while trying to overcome a monster far stronger than him. However, Marion softly clarifies that it isn't about finding an answer. The clan head simply wants to watch Christian get knocked around and tossed aside while testing how he will handle the pain. Christian lets out a small breath while coming to terms with it. He decides that something like this will just be another small challenge for him to clear. During the clash with the rock lizard and the bear, Christian notices the insane pace and force they hold. Yet, he figures there must be a method to tackle them. Soon, the bears start moving in his direction. Meanwhile, at the other side where the clan head and Marion stand, the clan head comments that Christian surely carries some talent while noting how his moves appear unlike the others. Marion nods while agreeing but pointing out that he's still just a kid. Back in the fight, Christian manages to slam the bear to the ground while standing firmly on top of it. Watching this, the clan head and his aunt freeze in surprise. The clan head questions him, curious about how he managed to pin the beast down. Christian explains that this bear holds massive brute strength and solid defense, and although he tried attacking it head-on, its swiftness and low resistance to magic turned out to be its weak spots. He mentions that he grabbed the chance the moment it appeared while injecting dark magic into its heart in that instant. At this point, Eshid glances at the clan head while wondering if it might be Dark Death, a move the master often uses. Soon after, Christian faces off against the rock lizard, while realizing there's still one more left to deal with. The lizard comes charging, but Christian lands a sharp blow at it. The creature keeps spitting poison in his direction, and Christian quickly understands that this rock lizard holds 3 stone hearts. Unless all 3 are stopped at the same time, it will continue to revive. Thinking fast, he wonders if it's time to switch to another method. Afterward, he moves toward the lizard while aiming to strike its heart. He shatters it without much effort. Seeing this, Eshid finds it impressive while realizing it's a form of dark death, and he turns to the clan head to check if that's true. The clan head, unable to get a clear view, tells him to step aside. Next, he glances at Marion while asking if she's the one who taught Christian this. She denies it calmly. The clan head remarks that it's not something that can just be picked up easily anyway. Eshid then mentions that with this, there seems to be no reason to even study dark magic anymore. However, the clan head cuts him off while saying that it's enough for now since the task is done. Soon, Christian arrives where the clan head sits. The head remarks that Christian's performance has gone beyond what he expected, and that he has done well. Christian, while catching his breath, shares that it turned out to be a great lesson, and thanks to the master, he managed to understand how to apply dark magic by himself. The clan head, while narrowing his eyes, warns him not to get overconfident, and then mentions it's time to begin the proper training in dark magic. He gestures for the other 2 to step out. They get the hint and quietly leave the room while leaving Christian and the clan head alone. Before the first magic lesson begins, the clan head turns to him while asking what he thinks magic truly is. Christian responds while thinking it's about taking control of the enemy using perfect darkness. The clan head then questions him about what perfect darkness actually means, and at that moment, Christian finds himself unable to give an answer. The clan head, while observing him quietly, motions for him to pay close attention. He mentions that unlocking the seal is where all darkness lies hidden, and he must keep moving forward, step after step. As Christian listens, the clan head mentions that once he descends the deep stairs, 12 abysses will be waiting for him below. After a pause, the clan head begins chanting a spell while calling upon the crow who seeks wisdom to accept and honor it, and to swallow its master in darkness. As he finishes the chant, he pushes his hand forward while shaping the spell while causing dark energy to form in front of him. Christian watches, stunned, as flickers of black light flash around him. In that instant, he feels a sharp sensation across his neck, while realizing that something definitely slices through it. His body remains unharmed, but the feeling remains vivid. The clan head, in a calm tone, explains that it is a conceptual blade that only cuts what it desires to cut, while describing it as the fierce energy known as the black sword formed by dark magic. He mentions that he will give Christian a month to train, while telling him to refine the black sword he has just demonstrated. With those words, the clan head turns and walks away while leaving Christian standing there, surprised. Christian begins his training and later feels drained, so he slips off his shirt. Glancing at himself, he notices he should put on some weight. Afterward, he drops to the floor while wondering if he should just train one more time. Soon, he starts using his dark energy skills again while practicing with focus. However, he realizes once more that it's not going to be simple. No matter how many times he manages to summon, it's tough to keep it steady for over 10 seconds. Besides, it feels nothing like the clan head's darkness, which is much stronger and feels like complete darkness. Yet he thinks that if he keeps going, the 12 abysses waiting ahead must hold some hidden knot somewhere. Afterward, he begins chanting the spell. Meanwhile, on the other side, the clan head arrives with Marion. They step down the stairs while thinking that by now, Christian must have figured out his level after failing the mock cut so many times. The clan head asks Marion if she's truly worried, and she responds that if there's no other quicker method, they both already know there are only 2 months left until the young lord exam. The clan head notes that even so, quick progress is impossible with the purity of dark magic within Christian. Forcing him will only lead him to hit a big wall, so it's better to build a steady base first instead of stressing over the exam. Then, they walk over to where Christian is training. Christian notices them while mentioning that he thought they would arrive a bit later. They appear surprised to see him. Christian thanks him while feeling grateful that because of his guidance, he managed to reach 3 stars, which is more than he imagined. Yet, as they can see, this is the best he can manage for now. It took him around a week to form the dark sword, which he once thought was just pointless. He now realizes that the vague words given by the clan head back then about the 12 abysses meant that each abyss stands for a vital trait of the dark sword. The clan head, while finding Christian a bit irritating, thinks that Christian has truly grasped the task, even managing to manifest the true dark sword. He reflects on how it took him at least a year to form a basic dark sword, and believes it would take a lifetime to understand all 12 dark magic and complete the dark sword. Yet, Christian has managed to do it in only a month while making him wonder if this is the ray of hope at the end of his long journey. Later, the clan head tells Christian to prepare for tomorrow, while hinting that he won't be teaching him easy lessons anymore. Christian, filled with excitement, trusts him completely, ready for what's coming next. Christian thinks that since he's managed to get past one barrier, maybe it's a good moment to reward himself. He heads over to the area stocked with liquor while feeling pleased as he spots the neatly lined bottles. Picking up one that looks especially classy, he thinks about how he's now holding expensive booze he once couldn't even dare to imagine tasting. He plans to enjoy it quietly while Marie isn't around to notice. But right when he lifts it, a woman steps in and remarks about him drinking during the day, while noting that he really hasn't changed. He can't recognize who she is at first, only noticing she carries the aura of a 3-star rank magician. Judging by her eye color, he senses she's not from the dark magician lineage. He wonders if she's someone who knows him. She grows irritated at how he fails to recognize her while finding him troublesome. Without warning, she shoves him to the ground. Nearby, her guard urges her to stop while saying there's no need to bother herself with someone like him. Christian ends up sitting on the ground while feeling the sting of the moment. Soon after, a man comes hurrying over. Christian questions why the stranger is acting so harshly. The man then explains that the woman is young lady Marisa from the Ultimate Poison Dark Magic family. Christian's thoughts spin while realizing that if she's from the Ultimate Poison Dark Magic family, could she actually be his fiancée? However, the older man clears up the confusion while noting that she is, in fact, his ex-fiancée. Marisa steps away from that place, and her thoughts wander back to when she was 8 while sitting in a garden and feeling bored. Back then, she believed that everyone would just gather around her brother anyway, so she couldn't understand why her father even brought her to this dark mage family event. Meanwhile, someone in the crowd notices her and starts wondering if she's the child born out of wedlock. They also think that maybe Duke Huam changed his stance since his son can't have heirs, so he might need a daughter to secure a son-in-law one day. Around that moment, Christian walks over and asks why she's sitting alone. She becomes irritated and shouts that she isn't a kid, she's Marisa. Christian tells her his name, and she quietly wonders if he's the son of Baron Khazar. But then he advises her not to worry about the adults, and reminds her that she can get even with them once she's older. Hearing this, she quietly promises herself that she will do exactly that. She will grow into the strongest dark mage and crush the arrogance of anyone who looks down on her. Christian finds her resolve interesting, and she affirms that this is what's expected of someone from a dark mage family. He points out that since she plans on becoming the strongest, it would be wise for him to stay on her good side. He reaches out his hand while offering to guide her around the house of Dark Mage. She feels hesitant at first, but then decides to accept and goes along with him. Now, Marisa pushes that memory aside, though it still leaves a faint ache in her chest. Even if that engagement was only meant to calm tensions between the families, it kept her restless at night while wondering about the future they might have shared. But now, she knows she's not that foolish anymore. Later, she rises from her bed and makes her way to meet Viscount Langham. He welcomes her kindly and asks why she's there. She reminds him that a relic has appeared in the neutral territory between their families. He acknowledges it and wonders how the ultimate poison dark magic family plans to handle the situation. Last time, they kept the relic, so he questions whether they plan to surrender it this time. Marisa firmly states that giving it up isn't an option, and points out that the Dark Mage family wouldn't back down if the roles were switched. The Viscount notes that she's proposing a fair solution, and she agrees while suggesting that both sides send exploration teams, with whoever finds the relic first getting to keep it. She also mentions that the teams should consist of no more than 10 Dark Mages of 3-star rank or below. Viscount Langham asks if this is to prevent a direct conflict, and she confirms it while explaining that if both families suffer heavy losses, it will only benefit their enemies. She adds that the situation at the Demon King's castle has also been unstable lately. Viscount Langham agrees to her conditions, but brings up an extra condition that makes Marisa wary. He clarifies that if the ultimate poison dark magic family breaks the agreement, the Dark Mage family will claim this relic along with the last one discovered. Marisa asks what he means by breaking the deal, and he explains that he's referring to any underhanded actions, such as interfering with their exploration team, since traps and hindrances are what the ultimate poison dark magic family is known for. She assures him that there won't be any tricks and accepts the added condition. The Viscount nods and asks if she will personally lead the ultimate poison dark magic family's exploration team, and she confirms that she will. He remarks that it seems he will get to witness the power of the famed Myriad Poison Maiden for himself. Marisa tells him that on the day of the expedition, she will be ready and waiting for the Dark Mage exploration team. After their meeting, he gets up and moves to play chess. As he places each piece, he thinks about how to outmaneuver Marisa. In that moment, he realizes that this upcoming expedition will be exciting and suspenseful. 2 months slip by, and as the days pass, the season slowly shifts. During this period, Christian keeps pushing himself with relentless training. At the same time, he notices the people around him gradually changing as well. Some start acting differently while carrying hidden emotions tied to memories from past lives. Those who lose in competitions begin to quietly disappear one by one, while others, driven by jealousy, start preparing in the shadows while sharpening their weapons for the right moment. A few others begin to take cautious steps, clearly planning for what lies ahead. Later, Christian moves to the residence where Viscount Langham stays. Before long, Langham arrives with his associates, and without delay, he announces that the time has come for everyone to prove their worth. Hearing this, Christian instantly decides to show his strength. In front of everyone, he swings his sword through the air with force and control, making it clear to all how skilled he has become. Meanwhile, Rowan stands among the onlookers, and when he sees the strike, his mind immediately thinks of the dark sword. The sight leaves him speechless, unable to believe the level Christian has just displayed. As Christian observes the crowd, he notices unusual reactions in their expressions, which makes him pause to reflect. He realizes that his demonstration has clearly left an impression. Then, a memory resurfaces in his mind that is the clan head's warning that Christian must never reveal the true strength of the dark sword to Langham. If he does, Langham might give him an even harsher mission next time. He was also told never to admit that he received more than the others. These words echo in his mind as he recalls them while realizing that he held back today, just as advised. Still, the image of Langham's shocked expression gives him a thrill while making him genuinely satisfied. After all, he has managed to impress everyone while keeping his true power hidden. Soon Viscount Langham, while observing the scene, makes a decision. With a firm look, he acknowledges Christian's skill and announces the next phase, a second test. He explains that agents will soon be sent to retrieve a relic that has appeared in the neutral zone. Since the ultimate poison dark magic family is also involved, he states that if Christian contributes successfully, he will formally acknowledge him as a rightful heir. Hearing this, Christian begins to think the mission sounds simpler than he expected. He starts believing that these tasks are easy enough for him to handle alone. However, as soon as this thought forms, Langham cuts it off by instructing Christian to join Princess Juvian's unit for the mission instead. The moment these words are spoken, shock ripples through everyone present in the castle. Langham adds that this mission was initially meant for Rowan, while making it an even greater honor for Christian. Christian is caught off guard by this, but quickly regains his composure and accepts the order without hesitation. Afterward, he leaves the hall, escorted by guards. Meanwhile, Rowan turns to his father while expressing concern that Christian might mess up again like before. His father calmly responds while assuring him that there's no need to worry, and everything will unfold as planned. He tells Rowan to be ready when his own moment arrives. Although Rowan listens, something in his father's calm tone leaves him feeling uneasy. The next morning, Christian heads out, lost in thought. As he walks, doubts begin to take root, making him feel that Langham might have assigned him a mission that could cost him his life. The fear lingers in his mind, and he keeps turning the task over in his head, unable to shake off the discomfort. Then, Langham's earlier words return to him that this mission was originally intended for Rowan. This thought makes Christian wonder what truly happened in history. He knows that Rowan was supposed to be the heir during this period, not him. Yet he realizes he's heard nothing about Rowan during the time of the Great War. This realization troubles him deeply. As he continues walking, his dog suddenly speaks up while teasingly asking if he wants to know the truth, while insisting Christian keep petting him to hear the story. Feeling both frustrated and curious, Christian agrees, unable to hide his need for answers. The dog begins to reveal the story of the Devil's Relic incident, a hidden conflict between the Dark Mage House and the ultimate poison dark magic family that was never made public. The dog explains that during the relic search, the Dark Mage House was wiped out, while the ultimate poison family also suffered heavy losses, yet both sides kept the truth buried. More importantly, the dog reveals that this incident became the seed of a great disaster. Christian listens intently, shaken by what he hears, and asks why it happened. The dog continues while sharing that Nordione was killed by Marquis Langham's son. If that hadn't happened, the Demon King of Evil Blood wouldn't have overtaken the Dark Mage family so easily. Because of that single death, the era of destruction arrived much earlier than it should have. Christian freezes while absorbing every word. The thought that the Dark Mage House was destroyed makes him wonder if, in this version of history, he is meant to die in Rowan's place. The fear cuts deep while making him realize that this mission isn't as simple as it first appeared. Instead, it's part of a larger scheme by Marquis Langham. After thinking it through, Christian understands that this is not just a test but a dangerous plan. However, since he has no solid proof yet, he decides not to act recklessly. He reminds himself that he's only at third-level mastery and questions what he can realistically achieve right now. Still, he chooses to stay cautious and decides to head outside first. At that moment, he clears his mind and steps forward. Just as he begins to leave, someone calls out while telling him to stop and asking where he's going. Christian halts and looks back, spotting a boy standing there with an angry expression. The boy speaks sharply, filled with irritation. Christian calmly meets his gaze and responds without emotion while questioning if it really matters where he's headed. The boy steps closer while mentioning that he's heard about Christian joining the expedition. Although he has no desire to join himself, he wants to ensure Christian handles the mission well, the one originally meant for Rowan. It's clear the boy is trying to provoke him, yet Christian remains steady and collected. He replies while asking if the boy simply wants him to do nothing. He adds that Langham gave him the task because he didn't believe Rowan could handle it properly. Those words hit hard and the boy's anger explodes. Without thinking, he charges at Christian while swinging his sword with all his frustration. The blade cuts through the air swiftly, but Christian doesn't panic. He dodges smoothly while avoiding the attack with ease. The boy freezes in disbelief, unable to comprehend how Christian evaded so effortlessly. Christian glances at him calmly while stating that they've exchanged enough greetings. He points out that they clearly don't enjoy each other's company, and assures him that he won't appear again until the exploration begins. Then, he turns to leave while mentioning that he has other tasks to prepare for. The boy watches him walk away while throwing a final remark and wishing him luck with supply preparations. Christian continues on, completely at ease. Behind him, the boy slowly lowers his sword, his gaze fixed on Christian's back. A clear thought forms in his mind as he realizes that Christian looked straight at the blade without flinching, and only moved at the last moment while allowing the attack to miss on purpose. In that moment, the boy understands that Christian is far more dangerous than he ever imagined. When Christian finally arrives at the town, the streets are already bustling with activity. All around him, numerous shops are painting their signs or setting up their displays. The colors feel loud, the smells of food fill the air, and the chatter of people surrounds him. Soon after, he picks out some food from one of the stalls and begins eating it casually. As he does, people nearby stop and stare, clearly surprised by his behavior. A moment later, the shop owner rushes over, but Christian simply hands over some money without hesitation. After that, while holding the food in one hand, he starts walking away. While chewing, he quietly thinks to himself how long it has been since he last had proper meat. With a relaxed expression, he admits that if he could, he would spend the rest of his life simply eating and playing. Meanwhile, as he continues walking, he remembers that a certain person's shop should be nearby. Still munching, he suddenly senses something behind him. His instincts kick in, and he wonders if it would be better to try and shake off whoever is following him first. He sighs to himself while thinking how annoying it is, especially since the ones following him seem like underlings sent by Marquis Langham. However, before he can act, someone suddenly covers his mouth from behind. His eyes widen as shock floods his mind, unable to grasp what is happening. A girl appears and pulls him into a side alley, her hand still covering his mouth while trying to keep him silent. He turns his head and tries to catch a glimpse of her face, unsure of who she is or what she wants. She finally lets go and informs him that someone had been tailing him, but her subordinates have taken care of it, so he can rest easy now. Still caught off guard, Christian raises his voice slightly while questioning how anyone is supposed to stay calm after being dragged away with a hand over their mouth. He then demands to know who she is. Calmly, the girl reveals her identity, that she is from the Evil King Castle. His body freezes for a second after hearing that. Then, the girl continues speaking while explaining that she is someone trying to stop the ominous signs that have started spreading throughout the Evil King Castle. She adds that it would be better if they moved now and asks if he wants to come with her. Though stunned, Christian doesn't hesitate long. Eventually, he nods and tells her to lead the way. They begin walking, with her slightly ahead of him. After a while, he asks how far they are going. Without turning around, she begins to explain what's really happening. Recently, people from the Evil King Castle have been disappearing without leaving any trace. She tells him that the safe zones within the castle are also being destroyed one by one. Moreover, the Evil King Castle itself is a region caught in constant conflict between three major families, a place originally ruled by fear. According to her, the heads of those families do not care about the life or death of their people. Because of that, she decided she needed the help of several families to root out the criminal forces causing chaos. Still, she admits that she cannot ask for help without giving something in return. She then promises to offer information, something that could help calm the storm threatening to fall upon the Dark Mage family. As he listens, Christian finds himself completely stunned. Then, the girl drops an even heavier truth. She reveals that Marquis Langham is secretly working with a high-ranking figure from the Ultimate Poison Dark Magic family. Their shared goal is to eliminate Marisa, the daughter of that same dark magic family. Hearing that, Christian feels another wave of shock. He can't understand why both his people and Marisa are being targeted. When he questions her motive, the girl explains further. She tells him that if these events cause the 27 forces to lose their balance, the ringleaders within the Evil King Castle will become more aggressive. Eventually, this chaos could disrupt the balance among the 12 Dark Mage families. In the worst case, it could lead to a far greater tragedy. So, she warns him to prepare well for the upcoming relic exploration. Furthermore, she expresses hope that he will safely become the young lord of the Dark Mage family, strong enough to stand against those who try to ruin peace. As he hears this, Christian can't help but think that she even knows about his potential as the young lord. He assumes that her information network must be wide and powerful. However, he doesn't blindly accept everything. He questions how he can trust her, especially since she hasn't shown any proof. If she wants him to cooperate, she'll need to offer something as collateral. Frustration flashes across her face after hearing his request. Seeing her like that, he throws out a remark while assuming she has nothing to offer. But before he walks away, she stops him. With a determined expression, she pulls something from her clothing and hands it to him. Christian's eyes go wide as he sees the item that it's not something he ever expected. Without a word, he turns and walks away, his mind still filled with questions. Behind him, the girl watches quietly, her expression unreadable. Then, she glances at herself and whispers to no one in particular, while wondering why she can't show her true self to Christian. A monster-like figure near her replies that it's for her own safety. If Christian ends up in danger and speaks her name, things could get far worse. She hears this and softly agrees while accepting the truth. The monster nods and tells her that for now, they should just wait and see. He calls her by name, Idrine. She gives a small nod and quietly responds. Meanwhile, Christian walks farther away while holding the card that Idrine gave him. A small smile appears on his face. He thinks about how lucky he is to have received it exactly when he needed it. As he continues, he examines the card closely. It's from the Dark Auction House, a hidden marketplace where smuggled relics and rare animals are sold. These access cards, he knows, are only given to verified nobles or the rich. As he approaches the building, memories rise. In the past, none of the warriors had cards, and getting inside had always been a problem. Then suddenly he notices the name, Leah de Bolfman. It's a name he has never heard before. His thoughts suddenly return to what Idrine told him earlier about Marquis Langham's secret connection to the ultimate poison dark magic family. Her words keep repeating in his mind. Still, he reminds himself that he can't confirm her identity yet. It's too early to put complete trust in her. Therefore, he decides it's best to be cautious and prepare himself properly. Once he arrives at the auction building, he heads to the counter and requests to send a message pigeon. The worker nods quickly and hands him the tools. Christian writes down the name carefully, places it on the pigeon, and sets the bird free. As it flies away, he watches it go and quietly thinks to himself that the first step is now done. At last, he takes a deep breath and wonders if it's finally time to meet that guy. When Christian finally enters the building, the man in charge immediately steps forward. He crosses his arms and blocks the way while warning that this is not a place for someone like him and instructs him to leave right away. In response, Christian lifts his hand and reveals the card he carries. As soon as the man sees it, his face changes completely. Shock floods his expression, and he stammers an apology. Apparently, Christian holds a VIP card. The staff members nearby immediately begin greeting him with respect. The moment he enters the main hall, he notices that many people have already gathered there. Not long after, a man approaches him and, with a puzzled look, asks whether he is Leah de Bolfman. Christian calmly replies that, just for today, he is. Then he questions if there's any issue. Although the man looks at him with suspicion while thinking his voice sounds far too deep for someone named Leah, he simply responds that there's no problem. Christian, without losing composure, asks to be taken to the branch manager. When the man hesitates, Christian sharpens his tone and repeats the request while reminding him firmly to hurry. Eventually, they arrive at a quieter space where Christian is invited to sit. The man, still looking uncertain, promises to bring the branch manager and walks away. Meanwhile, Christian begins observing the space around him. Everything in the room reflects wealth and status. He quietly thinks that every detail is top class, just as one would expect from the Rudolph Merchant Group. He remembers that this group works very closely with the Union Deer Merchant Group and is even powerful enough to operate a secret black market. In fact, their influence stretches across nearly every distribution route in the dark magic empire. He reflects that if the Rudolph Merchant Group can't acquire something, no one else possibly can. Suddenly, the door opens, and a woman enters with quiet authority. She introduces herself as Ruvid, the branch manager of the auction house and the head of the Rudolph Merchant Group. She confirms that he requested to see her and asks what he needs. Without hesitation, Christian raises his voice and demands she bring Ruina. Ruvid freezes for a moment, startled by the name. She hesitates before repeating it with confusion. Christian looks directly at her and insists that she knows who Ruina is, the deer merchant owner. She admits she knows of Ruina, but claims even if she could reach her, she doesn't understand what he means. He calmly explains that Ruina is already here. Naturally, this makes her even more confused. Christian adds that it must be due to the power of the artifact, while suggesting that it's extremely effective. Then, with a faint smirk, he tells her they'll likely be seeing each other more often. Her eyes widen further as her disguise begins to fade. Her real appearance becomes clearer, and panic flashes across her face. She demands to know how he figured it out. Christian, while staying composed, thinks back to his past life. He remembers the hardships she caused him and silently promises she will repay it all in time. He mocks her openly now while accusing her of hiding behind a relic with weak camouflage. He laughs and tells her that the relic's effect is so poor that her large face couldn't even stay hidden properly. She gasps and looks at herself in horror while shouting that there's no way the relic failed. Christian, inwardly laughing, knows he's lying. He would never truly insult a well-crafted artifact. Still, he taunts her again while suggesting her face is simply too large for full coverage. Ruvid's anger rises. She argues that it's not the reason and points out that he isn't really Leah de Bolfman. She guesses he must be someone already well known in the dark magic empire. She scolds him while reminding him that he entered a members-only venue using someone else's name, so he has no right to act superior. Christian raises a brow and fires back while asking who's really threatening whom. He warns her that he could easily spread rumors. One's claiming a union official is doing secret business in the dark magic empire. Clearly, her confidence starts to shake. She shifts tone and asks what exactly he wants. He responds with a smile. Before long, she hands him several items, jewels, valuables, and rare materials. He receives them with satisfaction. As she turns to prepare more, Christian feels pleased with himself. He realizes he has just enough to gather the ingredients needed for a certain drug formula. Excitedly, he shouts that all this effort is to prevent destruction. He reminds himself that, although this haul may not massively increase his strength, It's still enough to counter one or two of the backup plans Marquis Langham might have prepared. After that, Christian leaves the auction house. While walking through the training grounds nearby, he spots several people sparring with each other. One of them notices him and shouts out while asking where he's going. The person invites him to join the training now that he's there. Christian pauses for a moment and then waves him off. He tells them he's too tired from moving around and questions why he should train when he doesn't plan to fight like a soldier, especially not like Rowan. With that, he turns away and calls out to them while wishing them good luck with their training. One of the trainees glares at his back and yells after him, clearly angry. However, another person steps forward, placing a hand on the angry one's shoulder. He tells him to let Christian go. He explains that Christian isn't getting much out of this anyway, and if he doesn't do anything worthwhile, he'll eventually fall behind. He watches Christian walk away and mutters in frustration while wondering why someone so capable keeps throwing away his advantage so carelessly. Christian gives a small nod, while Ruvid ponders where he intends to make use of all this. She passes him a bag, and he scoffs internally while calling her a painfully uncultured creature in his thoughts. Yet realizes now isn't the moment to nitpick about what he receives. Ruvid remarks she doesn't quite grasp what he's aiming for, but insists he keeps her identity under wraps in exchange for this. He casually assures her while adding they'll cross paths again, though she admits she'd rather not run into him next time. Afterward, he brings up her name while questioning whether he should stick with Ruvid or call her Rowena now. He considers that war might break out soon, with both the Union and the Dark Magic Empire making their moves while hinting that the continent's political climate is growing tense. If an all-out war truly sparks and routes across the lands get sealed, either the Union or the Dark Magic Empire will need to be taken down while slashing trade in half. Ruvid dismisses his words while insisting that war isn't something to treat like a child's pastime, but he challenges her certainty, pointing out how the rumors drifting out of the capital lately don't sound that far-fetched. She falls quiet while realizing the tension brewing in the imperial capital is real, with plenty of noble houses pushing hard for war with the Union. She questions why he's sharing all this while wondering if he truly expects a simple merchant like her to prevent a war. Christian, with a laid-back tone, mentions she could just sponsor him instead while claiming he will shape a future where war doesn't happen. She finds his talk confusing, so he clarifies that any force would need to pass through the southern Dark Magic Kingdom where the Dark Mage family holds ground. But if he can secure the position of Duke this time and ready himself for what's ahead, the worst can be avoided, and her trade profits will stay safe from being cut in half. He asks if she'll take this offer, all while thinking her eyes aren't hiding anything, and maybe investing in him isn't the worst idea. She eventually shakes his hand while agreeing, while warning that if he breaks his promise, she will leave him without hesitation. Christian coolly notes he doesn't repeat himself and thinks he doesn't mind, even if she once rescued him from downfall. In his mind, he calls her Mr. Moneybag while telling her to stay safe on her way. Meanwhile, Christian works somewhere else while reflecting that since someone powerful from the ultimate poison dark magic family is involved, it's wise to have an antidote ready just in case. It's been a while since he last crafted one, and he isn't confident it will turn out perfectly this time. Back in his past life within the renowned medical clan, Christian struggles to keep the flame steady, muttering about its weakness. Elra urges him to fan it harder, reminding him their clan never loses when it comes to fire control. He complains back while questioning who she is, while recalling how they first crossed paths on the battlefield during the First War. She had no choice but to step onto that battlefield young, after the Demon King Evil Blood wiped out her clan while seeing their unmatched medical talent among the 7 great allied clans as a threat. Elra herself couldn't dodge the blade of the Demon King Evil Blood, and Christian keeps fanning the flame as she quietly observes how remarkable he is while managing to recreate her clan's medicine with only a quick explanation. She wonders why someone like him didn't appear in her life sooner. Christian mentions that even the renowned medical clan, once seen as saint-like, is falling apart as the head of the household is already coughing blood. He knows the only reason he's alive after taking a blow from the Demon King Evil Blood is due to her medicine. As Elra coughs, she forces herself up while stating she can't lie down when countless people are still in pain in this chaotic world, while finding it tragic that the renowned medical clan's line is coming to an end. Christian tells her to leave the past behind and focus on recovering. She then grabs a book from the table and shows it to him while explaining it contains the surviving secret techniques of the renowned medical clan, asking him to accept it. She keeps coughing, and he urges her to rest, but she suddenly grips his hand whole, asking him to save those in pain for her, so she can leave this world without regrets. She gives him the book, and he softly asks if he can call her master now. He thinks it feels strange to call someone master who can't even act like one, yet realizes she made the right choice in him. From that day, Christian becomes the 27th head of the renowned medical clan. Even if only part of the book remains and cannot fully capture the clan's ideals and secrets, He steps onto the battlefield to keep his promise, eventually earning the title of the Saint on the battlefield. Now in the present, Christian quietly whispers to his master while telling her she's probably living peacefully somewhere, but even in this life, he will honor the promise he made to her. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Marquis finally gets a letter from his young lord. He feels joy as he receives it while chuckling while recalling how Marion would go wild whenever she got serious, while wondering whose son this boy truly is. He opens the letter, eager to see what it holds, then glances at the person nearby while mentioning that it's time to start preparing for his son.